Production by Liang Gu, Lao Zhang's philosophy author, Lao Shi. First. Lao Zhang's philosophy is money-based and Trinity. He has 3 religions, Hui, Yi, and Buddhism. He has 3 professions, military, learning, and business. There are 3 types of languages, Mandarin, Fengtian dialect, and Shandong dialect. His 3 kinds. He has 3 kinds. He even takes a bath only 3 times in his life. Although taking a bath is a trivial matter, in order to understand Lao Zhang's behavior and thoughts, it is necessary to explain. Lao Zhang only took 3 baths in his life. Twice he had already taken a bath. No one dares to tell whether the other one has come true, even though he was born in China where everyone is a prophet. The first time was on the 3rd day after he was born. The midwife washed him in a copper basin like a little mouse. The second time was on the eve of his wedding, when he took the initiative to wash himself in a clear water pond. The cost of $2 copper this time is still written in the account book. This is an unquestionable fact in Lao Zhang's history. As for the one in the future, according to the speculation of most prophets, if it is implemented, it must be passive. In short, it is body washing. Washing corpses is a Muslim custom. Does Lao Zhang believe in Muhammad? To answer this question, it seems that we should focus on the economic aspect, which is closer to certainty. If the day when Lao Zhang woefully mourned the feast was when the price of mutton was low, it would not be difficult to conclude that his will had the tendency to prepare 6 small items and 1 bowl of halal in accordance with Islamic funeral rites. Of course, relatives and friends are accustomed to eating and drinking in mourning. You can also use this to change your taste. And the problem of corpse washing may be solved incidentally. However, it is difficult to accurately predict the rise and fall of meat prices in 10, 20, or 30 years. Besides, Lao Zhang has no intention of dying in his spirit. There was no sign of decadence in his physique, so the astrologer inferred that Lao Zhang had 10, 20, or 30 years to live, and concluded that the price of meat would increase after 10, 20, or 30 years. Reduction is equally difficult. Pork is expensive and mutton is cheap. If pork and mutton are both expensive, it is a Buddha, and when you are entertaining guests, it is a bad thing. Why do you do it when you are treating guests? The religion of Jesus Christ was spread to China, a country that only believed in the devil and did not know the kingdom of heaven, by pastors who preached for heaven. Sometimes old teachers are happy to invite believers to their homes for a chat. Instead of saying, "Please have a meal," they may say, "Please have tea." Inviting them to tea is naturally a custom among Western civilized people. In terms of affordability, there is a huge difference between eating and drinking tea. But when Chinese people go to foreigners' homes to have tea, their feeling flattered mentality outweighs the thought of economic benefits. This wonderful method was learned by Lao Zhang, so when he had to, he would invite friends to his home for tea. Do it this way. It can make friends understand that he has personally been taught by foreigners. As for saving a sum of money, it is nothing. Man imitated the old pastor and spoke Chinese in a flat voice. "It will be a quarter short of 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Please walk from your home to my home to have a bowl of tea." This is especially Lao Zhang's unique skill. Do business for money, serve as a soldier for money, run a school for money. At the same time, teach business and serve as a soldier, then you can make money from all over the world. This is called Trinity. This is called money is the basis but the Trinity. According to this, there are 3 ways to speak, 3 ways to believe in religion, and 3 times to bathe. All of them are implemented based on the philosophical ideal of Trinity. Lao Zhang also runs education. Really, yes. He has his own school. His school is located in a small town outside the north city of Beijing, closer to Dishengmen than Andingmen. It is a small quadruple house facing north and south, surrounded by a small courtyard that is long from east to west and short from north to south. 3 rooms facing the street are Lao Zhang's grocery stores, which sell opium. From onions to garlic, everything is available. The east and west bedrooms are the bedrooms for him and his wife. In summer, they live in the east room in the morning and in the west room in the afternoon. In winter, the opposite is true. In spring and autumn, they will be transferred depending on the weather. It not only saves the cost of a pergola and coal fire, but also benefits the body by moving it for a long time. The 3 rooms in the north room have been opened up with wooden sections, which is enough to accommodate more than 50 students. The 24 desks made of earth are arranged horizontally and vertically. Instead of using green ash, they are dyed with ink, which makes them black and even. Between the desks are small low stools made of acacia wood. Tall students. Squatting is more comfortable than sitting. For young students, sitting is about the same as hanging. There is a portrait of Confucius hanging in the middle of the north wall, with colorful pictures of the war between Japan and Russia on both sides. A 2-foot square blackboard hangs from 2 large iron cap nails on the west wall. Hanging on the nail is Lao Zhang's military cap and the constitution of the lunar calendar. There is a plaque with black characters on a white ground hanging high at the door, which reads, Dishing Flood of the Capital. Note, Dishing Flood, Sun, is pronounced as Sun, the name of Beijing's army or defense line in the Qing dynasty. Dishing Flood. That is, the army stationed outside Dishengmen. After Beijing entered the Republic of China, it still used the names of various floods. Outside Dishengmen in the northern suburbs is still called Dishing Flood. Public and private government and business elementary schools. Lao Zhang's school has the 3 strictest prohibitions. The first is that students are not allowed to open the windows of the classroom regardless of spring, summer, autumn, or winter, because half a mile around the school is a stinking ditch, and no matter whether the wind blows from east to west, north or south, the stench is always overwhelming. Windows are not allowed to be opened to avoid the stench. As a result, the charcoal gas spewed out by more than 50 students was worse than the stench blowing from afar. The second is that students are not allowed to buy any supplies or snacks in stores outside the school. Lao Zhang's intention is to increase students' love for the school. Third, students are not allowed to go out and accuse Lao Zhang of selling opium, because he only provided temporary relief after the nearby opium den was banned by the government. In this way, the danger was less and the profit was high. As for the conscious reluctance to sell opium permanently due to his status, it was not the main reason. But we must at least thank Lao Zhang for his enthusiastic education. Lao Zhang's status, the poor people in the village call him Sir. For some, if you send your children to his school, you cannot help but respect him. Some, when faced with a disaster announcement or approval of a marriage certificate. Depending on feng shui, you have to ask him, and you have to pay respects to him on weekdays. The richer people call him the shopkeeper because it is inconvenient for them to go into the city to buy their daily necessities such as oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. Most of them take care of Lao Zhang. People from Dishengmen. Some call him master, some call him Lao Zhang. It depends on his status, because Lao Zhang is a nominal patrolman in the yamen. Although the names are different, Lao Zhang is indeed an important figure in the town, Erlang town. If Lao Zhang unfortunately dies, the loss is greater than losing the saint. Because that saint can be both civilized and martial, and knows both yin and yang. Lao Zhang's figure is 5 feet 2 inches according to the national standard, which is suitable for the size of a soldier. Not only is the figure so appropriate, but the back is straight as well. When he was examined by the teacher, the examination committee confirmed that he was a vertebrate. A red face, slightly dotted with a few black moles. According to Ma Yi Xiangfa, the person is multi-talented and versatile. The 2 thick eyebrows are connected in a straight line. 2 little pig eyes were covered by black bushes. A short and thick nose, the nostrils are slightly turned upward, like a cicada hanging upside down on a wicker. A thin mouth, with the lower lip turned upward to cover the front teeth that have fallen into disrepair. Therefore, if you don't look carefully, it is most easy to mistake it for a stuffed sesame seed cake. The left side of the face is raised high, and the right ear is almost on the shoulder to show the dignity of the teacher. When criticizing a person's beauty or ugliness, you can't just look at one part and ignore the whole thing. Although I say that Lao Zhang's nose is like a singing cicada and his mouth is like a sesame seed pancake, I never dare to say that he is not good-looking. Looking at him as a whole, the more you see that his mouth looks like a sesame seed cake, the more you feel that he must have a cicada-like nose to go with it. Viewed from the side, sometimes there is a black shadow of the nose depression, vaguely like tiny cicada wings. Even when Lao Zhang himself looked in the mirror, he didn't smile and boast, "Put your nose up a little, Otherwise, how can you ask women to look twice?" Second. That's the weather in May. The little sun pouted its red mouth like a basin, and was busy kissing the white clouds that were moving back and forth. Some lips hurriedly flew away, some leaned against little sun's red face, some transformed into evil dragons, opening their mouths and wanting to swallow her whole. Some turned into little sheep and ran around begging for her favor. It's a pity that people didn't pay attention to such a beautiful scenery. It's not their fault, it's just that the little sun is too shy and too aggressive, making the faces of those who want to see it so oily. So the rich people put up their arbors and didn't look at it, the poor people fell under the shade of willows and had their sweet dreams, who would disturb this idleness. The hot wind blowing, the chirping of cicadas in the willows and the singing of frogs in the lotus pond are enough to increase people's feeling of irritability. The poet's deep thoughts tease the falling flowers and the waning moon in their dreams, weaving into a piece of leisurely sorrow. The rich people ride on the flaming pomegranate flowers and the cocoons of yellow butterflies, which adds a bit of elegance. Lao Zhang had neither the poet's interest in touching things or the rich man's instant pleasure, he only stretched out his right hand and raised his head. Count the red apricots on the apricot trees in the courtyard in preparation for distribution to students as a reminder for parents of Michio students to give gifts. As for the half-sized apricot tree covered with red apricots, we don't know whether we can clearly understand it. Maybe Lao Zhang is somewhat sure. Cough. Lao Zhang. Lao Zhang counted to 98, and then counted 2 more to make it 100. He pinched the first joint of his index finger with his thumb, and then looked back. This gentle pinch, slowly a turn of events, more than 40 years of human experience. Fourth, sit in the room. No. I'm still in a hurry to go back. I've been busy with errands these 2 days. Don't be busy, there is food to eat. Lao Zhang shook his head full of philosophy, and word after word came out from his thin lips. Your ally brother Li Wu just gave me a call. The new academic administrator has arrived at Lao Wu's yamen. Come down here, get ready. We are not afraid of their superficial appearance, but there is no need to deliberately ignore them. Just get ready and I will leave. See you another day. The man wiped the sweat from his face and walked out. It's the boss. Lao Zhang hurriedly took 2 steps to ask for details. The newly arrived one. Anyway, I have to prepare, see you another day. The man said and walked out of the hospital. Lao Zhang calmed down for a few seconds, hurriedly read through the decades of experience in his mind, and then changed his 3 steps to 2 steps and ran into the north room. Mistress. Go and ask your mistress to prepare a pot of tea and place it under the apricot tree. Quick. Little 4. Go and ask your father to come and ask him to come and keep you company. Tell him to put on new shoes, do you hear me? Little 3 and little 4 ran out of the house like smoke. You take the 3-character classic. Put away 100 family surnames and take out Guowen, quick. What about the doctrine of the mean? A waste of words. All old books collected. Quick. At this time, Lao Zhang's piggy eyes were indeed whiter than pig eyes. I forgot to bring my Chinese language today, teacher. Damn. Not a thing. Don't forget until it's time to die. Cultivation is also done. Is arithmetic successful? To become. The one with the new book is my dad. Lao Zhang seemed a little anxious. Wang De. Go get a broom and sweep all the leaves from under the almond tree. Li Ying. You are a good boy. Take a wet hand towel and wipe all the faces of these ink monkeys. Quick. The person holding the book picked up the book, the person sweeping the floor swept the floor, the person wiping the face wiped the face, the person took the opportunity to stick out his tongue, the person winked. The chaos was no less than a small earthquake. Lao Zhang took off the military cap hanging on the blackboard with one hand and put it on his head. With the other hand, he opened a book of Chinese language and looked for words he didn't recognize. Wang De. Your dictionary? That's the red leather book on the desk. You're talking nonsense. Damn it. Why can't I find it? That's not my desk. How to find it? Wang De ran in with a broom and handed the dictionary to Lao Zhang. How are your books? When you are ready, go out and stand under the tree. Wang De, scan quickly. Lao Zhang pressed the dictionary with one hand and glanced under the window. Ha! I asked you to sweep the apricot leaves. You stole my apricots. Good. We don't have time now, let's settle the score when the matter is over. I didn't mean it, it fell from the tree. When I looked up, it fell right into my mouth. It's not intentional, teacher. You deserve to die. Scan quickly. You deserve to die 10,000 times. You are going to die. I ate all the apricots. Wang De muttered to himself. After Wang De finished sweeping, he placed the tea under the apricot tree, and placed 12 bean green tea bowls that had not been used for many years. Xiaoxi's father also came over, and he was indeed wearing a new satin shoes. Lao Zhang finished looking up the dictionary. As I waited for the academic master to arrive, I felt increasingly uneasy. Wang De. You looked at the door. If you see a car or a man wearing a long coat riding a donkey, come in and tell me. Face east. Even if a wasp stings the back of your head, don't look back. Do you hear me? It's not your head anyway. Wang De said in his heart. Li Ying. You run quickly and go to the west ice cellar to buy a piece of ice. You want it whole, not broken. Where's the money? What's in your pocket? Children have no magnanimity at all. Lao Zhang showed his magnanimity as a writer. Li Ying looked at Lao Zhang, then at Xiaoxi's father, Mr. Sun Ba, and walked out without saying a word. Only then did Lao Zhang think of asking Mr. Sun to sit in his room. He was so nervous that he reluctantly chatted with Mr. Sunday. Sun Bei looked to be about 40 years old, with a short stature and a round face. When walking, he shrugged his shoulders and raised his heels to appear taller and more dignified than his original stature. Two thin eyebrows, a pair of sleepy eyes that are always sleepy. Fortunately, I have a high and upright nose, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see the all-in-one structure on my face. The yellow dental plate in one mouth seems to be equipped with polished and faded gold teeth, however, a few short whiskers on the upper lip cover it, so that the golden light does not shine all over. Wearing a sky-blue satin robe, covered with a beige waistcoat with wide edges and copper buttons, he looks like a childlike boy, and you can tell he is a country gentleman at a glance. After a short while, Li Ying came in carrying a piece of snow-white ice. Lao Zhang said to Sun Ba. Master Ba came to see this hand, and he was only allowed to say yes, and he was not allowed to laugh. Sun Ba followed Lao Zhang into the classroom. Lao Zhang took the piece of ice, found a piece of wood, and put them together in the foreign stove on the east wall of the classroom, beating the mouth of the stove. Waves of cold air came out. Bei. See how wonderful this move is? The foreign stove is converted into a refrigerator, which can be warm in winter and cool in summer. It can be used for both purposes. Lao Zhang raised his thumb, squeezed his eyes into a slit, and the dotted line of smile went from his face to it extends until it reaches the upper atrium. I felt an itch in my heart before I was satisfied with my pride. It turns out that Lao Zhang's foreign furnace did not have fire tiles in the furnace cavity. Put it up in winter and you will feel warm just by looking at it. When there is a big ceremony in the summer, put a piece of ice in the refrigerator. Sun Ba couldn't stop praising him. After all, you have drank ink, and you have something in your stomach. While they were joking, Wang De ran in, blocked Lao Zhang's ears, and shouted like a thunderbolt, "Here we come." At the same time, Lao Zhang Wang De broke into a cold sweat with different emotions but the same result. Third. There was the sound of shoes being dusted outside the door, and Sun Ba rushed to greet him. Lao Zhang shouted at the top of his lungs, "Stand at attention." More than 50 students lined up in 2 rows. Xiao San pulled back his left foot too hard and put his heel on Xiao Si's toes. Ouch. Teacher. The mistress stood at attention, standing on my feet. To the left. Make a team appearance, welcome. After giving the order, the students all put their right hands to their eyebrows. Xiao Si was in so much pain that he wanted to cry, but he didn't dare to cry. He just covered his eyes with his hands and looked out through the tears. The person walking in front he knew was Li Wu from the Yamen. The person behind is naturally the academic affairs master. No need to salute, put your hands down, put them down, put them down. The academic affairs master looked more than 10,000 impatient. The students all took their hands off their brows. Lao Zhang added, ceremony, finished. Li Wu handed over a business card. Lao Zhang asked in a low voice, how is it? Li Wu responded secretly, it's easy to talk. Sir, please sit in the east room, or should you go to the lecture hall? Lao Zhang raised his hand and saluted the academic affairs master. Mr. Li, just wait for me. I'll probably take a look and then leave. Experts will just pass by. If you stand outside the school for 5 minutes, you can tell whether something is going well or not. That means you are from a good background. The academic affairs master shrugged his shoulders, tightened his belly, coughed loudly twice, then puffed out his cheeks, rolled his eyes, and looked around without twisting his neck. Roll a mouthful of phlegm into a smooth round ball with the tip of your tongue, like spittle sprayed from a small pump under the apricot tree. He took out a small hand towel and wiped his mouth, then wiped the sweat from the hollow of his nose. Then he said to himself, don't prepare a spittoon. Then Lao Wu. Mr. Ba, you 2 brothers can sit in the east room while I wait on you. Lao Zhang said. There is no need for adult or adult. Just, sir. The new methods and new names are no better than they were 7 or 8 years ago. Lead the students into the room. Yes. Go to the lecture hall. The lecture hall is inside the room. The room is a lecture hall. The academic affairs master seems to be a little dissatisfied with Lao Zhang's question. Yes. Lao Zhang raised his hand again. Turn left. Enter the lecture hall. The student raised his feet above his knees, stomped his heels hard, making the sound of winter mountains on the ground, and walked towards the lecture hall. Lao Zhang looked down from the podium. The students looked like more than 50 small stone piles. To put it more playfully, they look like more than 50 small stone Buddhas. Their eyes are wide open, their mouths are pursed, their necks are straightened, and their legs are straightened. That is to say, Professor Zhang has many years of experience, and the academic affairs master has a lot of experience. Otherwise, who can afford such a formation? Not even a hair of the 50 or so children could move, and even if one of them moved, the noise could be heard. The academic affairs master was choked by the thick charcoal gas in the room and sneezed 3 times in a row. He took out the Japanese precious pill from his pocket, breathed it into his nose angrily, and took out a handkerchief to wipe his tears. Lao Zhang took advantage of this opportunity and looked at the academic affairs master. The academic affairs master is about 45 or 6 years old. A black and yellow face. Inlaid with 2 colored glaze balls are white and black. An eagle nose with a high middle part, with some dried yellow tassels hanging under the nose, covering the mouth. Wearing an old gray official gauze robe, underneath a pair of Western-style trousers made of Hunan silk, tied at the trousers. Underneath her feet were a pair of short-cut, used foreign leather shoes, revealing socks made by a local blue market cloth shop. At first glance, people feel that the light is a bit out of tune. Once you get used to it, it seems that it is appropriate for both old and new, and allows to hold on to the right. Or it can be said to be the harbinger of the reconciliation of Eastern and Western cultures. Lao Zhang didn't dare to take a closer look, so he opened the 3rd volume of Chinese literature that he had prepared and started to perform his skills. Lesson 3 of New Chinese Language, can you find it? Found it, the students shouted in the highest pitch. Listen. Now it's time to attention. Lao Zhang read along the instructions in the professor's book. Wang De. Stand up straight. That's sports, do you understand? Wang De didn't understand, so he had no choice but to straighten his waist, which was already straight, to a point where it could no longer be straight. Listen. Now it's time to enter the concept. This lesson is about swallows, which are also migratory birds. Migratory birds are one type of bird, do you understand? I understand. Teacher. The students shouted in unison again. The mistress almost bit the tip of her tongue because she used too much force. Don't call me teacher, call me sir. New things, new names. Why don't you remember what I told you yesterday? Should remember. Lao Zhang continued, swallows fly from Hokkaido through Little Luzon, cross the Indian Ocean and arrive at Turkestan. Do you understand why they are migratory birds? Clear. Teacher, sir. This time the shouting was not quite coherent. The academic affairs master put a pencil in his mouth and wrote everything down in his small notebook along with Lao Zhang's lecture. After writing a section, stick your tongue to your lips and prepare to dip the pencil in saliva before writing further. When writing, touch the pencil on the tongue twice to write a word. Wang De glanced secretly, thinking that the master was suffering from a mouth sore, but the mistress, the academic affairs master was standing on his right, thought that the master's pencil had persimmon sugar on it. Mr. Zhang. Not until school is over. Lao Zhang was about to continue his lecture when the academic affairs master suddenly spoke. 20 minutes to go, yes. You come down to class early and send a college student to watch them. I have something to tell you. Yes. Li Ying, watch them study. Stand at attention. Salute. The students all stood up and put their hands to their brows. Most of them took the opportunity to scratch the sweat on their temples. Some of the academic leaders did not pay attention and swaggered out of the lecture hall. If anyone is looking for death, he should make a noise before the adults leave. Lao Zhang looked outward and inward, holding the door of the house with his hand, and said in a low and deep voice through gritted teeth. The adults came to the east room. Li Wu and Sun Bali stood up. Sun Ba handed over a bowl of tea and said, "It's hard work. How hard it is. Running so far on a hot day. There's nothing we can do about official matters. What's your surname?" The adult took a sip of tea and rinsed his mouth. I coughed for a long time and finally swallowed it. Master Suanba, a local gentleman. Lao Zhang answered for Suanba, and then said, "You will forgive me for the quality of my teaching today. The professor is pretty good, and you are very familiar with foreign place names. But it's not as good as writing it on the blackboard." My lord said solemnly. To be honest, sir, I learned those foreign words from an ally of mine. He worked as a translator from 6 countries in Dongjiao Mingxiang. According to him, as long as you adjust your reading of Chinese characters in Chinese characters, you will be right. Lao Zhang winked again and smiled from the outside in. Why do you need your ally to say that the person who went to school doesn't know that Chinese and Western languages are the same? The adult took out his pipe and put on a pack of cigarettes, and then asked, "How many students are there in total?" 54. Yes. There are 2 people asking for leave today. One has a funeral at home and one has ghost rubella. The adult wrote in the notebook. How much tuition fee does it cost per year? If the income is good, it's 150 yuan a year. If it's not good, it's about 100 yuan. The adults wrote in the notebook. then asked, "How can I call you in?" Lao Zhang rolled his eyes and replied, "Some people drop out of school halfway. If the tuition fees don't come in, it will be considered a loss." Ugh. Which textbook is from the business school or the Chinese school? From Zhonghua Book Company. Yes. The adult writes in the notebook. Hold the pencil in your mouth as if thinking of something. He said slowly, "It's better to use business. All the schools in the city have been changed." Yes. Change it tomorrow. Change it tomorrow. It's not me who talks too much, it stands to reason. The word China sounds better than business. I listened to a lecture in the city a few days ago and talked about China's great power. Why is it not fashionable now? Sun Ba said eloquently. How can you know more than adults? There must be a reason. Lao Zhang looked at Sun Ba. He looked at the adults again. The adult coughed twice and covered his mouth with his handkerchief as if he was about to yawn, but unfortunately he failed. Official matters change at any time. Li Wu took the opportunity to express some of his experience as an official. It is not fashionable now, but it will be back to normal in 2 years. The errands have to follow the new trends. That's right, isn't it? Grown-ups. Yes. That's great. Mr. Zhang. It's not that I'm showing off in front of you, but you've missed me. Do you, who is studying learning all over the world, have any ideas for the teachers? The emphasis on studying is to look at the flaws of gentlemen. Flaw, my lord is wise, Li Wu and Sun Ba said together. However, the lord raised his voice and said, "Mr. Zhang, there is one thing I cannot help but find fault with you." Li Wu and Sun Ba were both anxious for Lao Zhang. But Lao Zhang remained calm and said, "Yes. Sir, give me advice. Why is your podium built in the west? It is the White Tiger Terrace, which is intended to harm students and their parents. Education is a charity, how can we do this?" The adult said word for word. The previous adult said that the classroom should have left light, so I built the podium on the west side. To be honest, I also know a little bit about the yin and yang of feng shui. If you dare not disobey your boss's orders, you must forgive me, sir. Don't say anything about my predecessor, he can do things well and he won't have to withdraw from his job. But I will never report it. If I have the intention to embarrass you, I won't talk to you face to face, right? The adults laughed, and Li Wu and Sun Ba also laughed. The adults took another sip of tea and stood up. Li Wu and Sun Ba also stood up, but Lao Zhang saved the trouble and never sat down. It's hot, take more rest. Sun Ba said. No. There are 2 more places I plan to visit in the afternoon. Mr. Li. Grown-ups. Li Wu smiled like a drunken crab. Should we go to Woolaton or the Yellow Croaker shop? Your Majesty, if you please, I will be sent by the guard to escort you. I will obey your orders. Lao Wu. Serve your master well. I have to treat you to tea, needless to say, sir. Lao Zhang was about to say it but swallowed it back. Let's go to the Yellow Croaker shop. My lord, it seems that he didn't pay attention to what Lao Zhang said. What kind words, sir? Lao Wu, you lead the adults from Wangjiakan through Dongdadan and through the gate of Mr. Wu Qian. There were willow trees all the way, which was a bit obscured, and the sunlight was too harsh. Lao Zhang said. The master walked in front, and Sun Ba couldn't help but said, "Thank you." Li Wu secretly pulled Lao Zhang's sleeve and stretched out his thumb, and Lao Zhang smiled. 4th. Sun Ba said goodbye and went home. Lao Zhang stood outside the door and waited until the academic affairs master and Li Wu walked into the woods before taking a deep breath and walking in. The students rushed to drink tea like hot sheep under the tree. Several college students in the room secretly smashed the ice that was about to melt in the foreign stove. Ha ha. Whose idea was it to drink my tea? Lao Zhang decided to beat Zhang Qingqing. Teacher. It wasn't my idea, it was the 4th one who wanted to drink it. Zhang Qing covered his head with his hands and said. Xiao Si wants to drink? How much tuition fee does he get, and how much do you get? He eats rice, you eat stick noodles. Have tea? Not afraid of hurting your stomach. Come in, everyone. Lao Zhang looked at the teapot, but unfortunately most of it had been drank. Lao Zhang walked into the classroom angrily, and the students sat down like small stone piles. Wang Da's mouth was still full of ice slag. Mistress, Xiao Si, Bu Feng, Wang Chun. You go home and have dinner. Tell the family that the academic master is here, and the teacher has prepared tea and snacks for the adults and made small leaf tea for the students, and ask the family to take care of it and take as much as they should. The adults are inspecting your knowledge, and the teacher cannot make you lose money. Do you understand? Go. The mistresses picked up their school bags and ran away like wild deer. How are you doing? Are you admitting to beating or punishment? Go home and tell your father, give some things to the teacher. 7 or 8 students said at the same time. Speak accurately, don't be vague, a kiss is a kiss. Wealth is wealth. Teacher. What if we told him that his father was in a moment of inconvenience? Several college students said. Inconvenient? Don't send students to study in the first place. You have to study and save money. How can a teacher be so born to starve to death? No need to waste words. If you are afraid of being beaten, tell me the number. If you are itchy, the board is ready. Lao Zhang took off his military cap and hung it on the hat nail hanging on the blackboard as usual. He took off his robe and rolled up the sleeves of his undershirt. He picked up the pointer with one hand and pulled out the big bamboo stick from the depths of the desk with the other hand. Plate. He swung the pointer and flexed his wrist. He said with half annoyance and half smile. Give me a simple one. Those who burn incense will fulfill their wishes, and those who jump into mountain streams will also fulfill their wishes. The money is yours, and the meat is also yours. If you are willing to be beaten, if you are willing to be punished, it will be settled quickly. Every inch of time is worth an inch of gold, so waste my time. Can you afford the gold? 5 or 6 kind-hearted students felt a little embarrassed to eat on the boards in the hot weather. They stood up, some wanted to take a little chick from home, some wanted to take $500. The old Zhang recorded everything in his account book one by one. Let them go home. The rest of the students realized that if they asked for money at home they would be beaten, so it was better to repay them as bachelors and sell them to Lao Zhang for a few hits. If Lao Zhang sees too many people, he might hold an amnesty. It takes effort to hit someone, and it takes effort to eat more. Eating more means spending money, and spending money is destroying his philosophy. Why does Lao Zhang like to beat people? However, if we don't fight this time, no one will accept the punishment next time. Wouldn't it be a greater loss than eating an extra bowl of rice? Besides, just in case you get angry. If you can't eat, you won't be able to save a bowl or 2 of rice. Therefore, the student's hope for the eventuality is no match for the philosopher's hope for the eventuality, and the young men who want to be bachelors are miserable. The students were gearing up and raising the temperature to prepare against the cold iron-hard bamboo board. Some shed tears but did not cry out. Lao Zhang became even more angry. Okay. You are disobeying me. So he played 3 more boards. Some of them were already crying and complaining before they even came to Lao Zhang. Lao Zhang became even more angry. Good. You used your tears to soften my heart. You meant to scold me. So I played 3 more times. Some were crying in a low voice, with tears rolling down their cheeks. Lao Zhang became even more angry. Okay. You want to lie to me half crying, you cunning devil. So he hit 3 more boards. Lao Zhang, like other philosophers, adheres to his independent philosophy. No matter how he imagines it, there will be no contradiction. The students were beaten and left, and now only Li Ying and Wang Do were left. Li Ying thought, I am the president of the university, so naturally I will not be beaten. Besides, I already bought him a piece of ice. As for Wang De, he knew that eating apricots, eating ice and other crimes were inevitable, so he rubbed his hands bright red in preparation for facing the enemy. Li Ying. How are you? Lao Zhang put down the bamboo board and stretched his wrists. I don't know. Li Ying lowered his head and said. Do you think I want hit the college president? Isn't it your fault that you didn't stop them from drinking tea or eating ice cream? I was supposed to drink the tea, and I bought the ice. I don't know whether it was wrong or not. Li Ying blushed and said confidently. Ha. Lao Zhang laughed wildly for a while. This time it is indeed a smile from the inside out, but it is the most difficult to determine whether it is true laughter from the inside out, because the emotions of philosophers are different from ordinary people. You're good, I'm wrong, I'm going to beat you. Lao Zhang suddenly stopped laughing and picked up the bamboo board again. If I want to resign, my uncle won't allow it. Li Ying thought to himself, I'm asking him to beat me. How can I have the face to meet people? I don't want to give up. Li Ying thought about it and thought that his uncle could be easier to talk to than Lao Zhang. What? Don't read it anymore? If you don't want to read it, don't read it. My uncle stopped asking me to study. Li Ying knew he was lying, but he had nothing to say to stop Lao Zhang. Your uncle? Vomit. Your uncle. Go and ask your uncle to pay off our Lao Zhang's money today, including the principal and interest. You miss me so much. Li Ying understands. Understand the relationship between everything. The tears couldn't stop flowing. Crying? As long as you can cry. Lao Zhang turned around and pointed at Wang De with his board. How are you? Let's figure it out. Fortunately, no one is addicted to eating laths. Wang De said with a smile. Wang De walked over slowly. Lao Zhang put the board down. Wang De was surprised and said in his heart, if the veteran is lucky, the old but may be in a worse situation. Then he thought, fortunately, as a family, it's time to ask the old but to replace the veteran. Anyway, you will be beaten and it will hurt, in my heart. I'm so happy that I don't want to change places. Wang De always thinks about the bright side. As soon as he thinks like this, he feels happy in his heart and smiles on his face, so he laughs. Wang De. Come with me to the East Room. I don't pick a place to get beaten. Not to mention, the East Room may be cooler than the West Room. After Wang De finished speaking, he followed Lao Zhang to the East Room. Lao Zhang was not holding the board. Wang De, how old are you this year? Lao Zhang sat down, raised his face and put his right hand on his temple. Me? I'm about 19 years old. I haven't married a wife yet. Fortunately, I'm not busy. Don't talk nonsense, I'm talking to you about serious matters. Lao Zhang seemed to have lost all his anger. Marrying a wife is more important than anything else, and it is also serious. If you say that marrying a wife is nonsense, there is no serious word in the world. As Wang De said, he found a stool and sat down. You know Li Ying's family affairs, don't you? Lao Zhang asked with one eye closed. I know his uncle's surname is also Li. What about others? I haven't studied it yet. Wang De said and laughed. He remembered that he had learned the word research in Chinese literature 2 years ago. He went home and asked his father, let's have dinner. Study okay? Being slapped in the face by his father, I still feel a burning fever when I think about it. My father didn't understand whether his son's word research was ridiculous or not. Wang De laughed louder and louder. You must fight. What's so funny? That's ridiculous. Isn't it ridiculous for people to grow their noses upside down and pour water into their mouths when it rains? Isn't it ridiculous that people want to grow beards on their palms and grow them into small natural hair brushes to brush their clothes casually? The hand hurts after being beaten. I can't help but laugh in my heart. You don't know what's going on in Li Ying's family? Old Zhang had known that Wang De would rather laugh after being beaten than just listen to him laugh. I don't know. Good. You are 19 this year, and Li Ying is also 19. He can be the president of the university, why can't you? If I want to appoint you as university dean, will you do it? Wang De and Li Ying are the best academic friends. He is dissatisfied with Li Ying for only one thing, that is, Li Ying is the college president. Wang De thinks that all old people are hateful, and his father because he said research. It made his face bloom. The old man, in Wang De's mind, was an old man who only relied on power and did not understand human feelings. Except for the elderly, it is abominable to be young and imitate the behavior of the elderly. My neighbor Pai San became a military officer at a young age. The soldiers who beat his subordinates were more vicious than a father beating his son. Qian Lu in the city was only in his 20s, so he imitated the old man and married 2 wives. Pai San, Qian Lu should be killed. As for Li Ying, he is not very old, and he has a stern face and disciplines his classmates by blowing his beard and glaring his eyes for Lao Zhang. Now Lao Zhang wanted to appoint Wang De as the university president. He said with a smile, Wang De, to become the university president before you have married a wife is ridiculous and can be killed. Wang De suddenly stood up and walked out. Don't leave. Lao Zhang stopped him. It's good for you. What are the benefits? Listen, I will tell you slowly. Lao Zhang pushed Wang De on the stool again. You want to be the president of the university, and I won't beat you from now on. But you have to help me settle the accounts of the shop. Wang De rolled his big eyes and didn't answer. There are benefits. How much study money do you get now, and how much snack money do you get every day? Study money is 6 cents a month, snack money is not necessarily, it depends on whether my father is happy or not. Yes. If you are the dean of the university, I understand, but you can help me settle the score. I charge you 4 ounces of tuition. Save your father 2 ounces of money? You don't understand. You don't need to tell your father that you receive 6 slings a month, give me 4 slings, and you can use the 2 slings yourself. Do you think that's okay? Don't tell your father. If he finds out, will you take the beating for me? Wang De laughed again. It would be fun if my father beat Lao Zhang just like he beat me. How could he know if you and I don't tell him? Just don't tell him. If you don't say anything, you will feel sad in your heart. Aren't you sad? If you don't talk during the day, what if you talk in your sleep at night? You're talking nonsense. No nonsense. Of course you old people don't talk in your sleep. Li Ying may not, but I do it every night. The more you don't talk about it during the day, the more fun you talk about it at night. Eat less, drink more water, save money and dreams. Save what? Save, dream. Look at your wife, she never dreams. When she's hungry, I tell her, drink some water. Wang De couldn't help laughing loudly again. He thought, if everyone treats women like this, in a few years women will not only know how to drink water, but also become animals that cannot dream. Vomit. Remembered. My father often said that there are human-headed fish in the South China Sea. Women have human heads and fish bodies. Needless to say, they are the result of this kind of training. But does the human-headed fish dream? Have no idea. Father? Maybe don't know. Snort. It's better not to ask him things that the old man doesn't know. The result is a slap in the mouth. Wang De. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you, so I'll just do it. Go home and have dinner. Lao Zhang stood up. There are too many problems here. Wang De counted them out one by one, being a college president, pretending to be an old man, defrauding your father of money, helping you settle accounts, drinking more water and eating less. Save money, save dreams, and become a mermaid. I don't understand. If you understand, do it this way. If you don't understand, do it this way. Go. Roll. Wang De had no choice but to stand up and walk out. Suddenly he remembered, where is Li Ying? You can't control it. I have a cure for him. Go. 5th. Lao Zhang arranged everything for Li Ying and Wang De and took a sip of herbal tea. As the tea went down, there was a rumbling sound in my stomach. Old Zhang, you are hungry. He said to himself, your stomach is like a beggar on the street, always bluffing and pretending to be ugly. Eat whenever you feel hungry, and from now on he promises to ring 70 or 80 times a day. He rubbed his belly and said, no need to protest with me, you annoying thing. Lao Zhang has his own methods. After giving the order, he immediately felt that the spirit was stronger than the body and began to plan everything. Today's 2 sentences. Stand at attention. What a crisp cry. How skillfully those Japanese place names were spoken. Lao Zhang. Finally you have what it takes. 104, plus the Boxing Day 30, it's 117. Xiaosan's father didn't even give him a few bushels of millet, enough to last him for a month or 2. The academic affairs master was finally satisfied with today's appearance, and once the report came up, the bonus was another 30. 117, plus 30 is 200. The shop will definitely make less than last year, even though the accounts haven't been settled yet. The debt owed by Li Ying's uncle is hopeless. After he resigned, Li Ying asked him to go to Chaosunshang, note, Chaosunshang, to be a patrol soldier. Because soldiers have to go through selection, the custom is called Chaosunshang. He sat on the ground and deducted 2 pieces of silver from him every month. Another year is 24. After Li Ying left, Wang De helped us settle the accounts and asked him for at least 2 slings of money every month. But save yourself the trouble of finding a young apprentice. Be cruel. Give up 2 pennies. The more he thought about it, the happier he became, and the happier his stomach became, but the more he felt there was no need to eat. So he ran to the north room, picked up the business card from the academic affairs master and looked at it carefully. The business card was red paper with gold characters printed on both sides. There were too many characters printed on it, so Lao Zhang didn't recognize some of them, but he didn't care about that. He wasn't a saint who invented characters, so who could recognize all the characters in the dictionary? The front of the business card. Educational workshop. In April of his studies, he visited Chongping County Education. He received the 3rd-class British and American Tobacco Company Silver Medal. He was a trainee in the Artillery Battalion of the 21st Regiment of the 11th Division. He was a member of the Beijing Autonomy Research Association, a member of the Beijing Youth Association, and the acting academic inspector of the northern suburbs of the capital. Correspondent of Shanghai Leisure Evening News. Nan Feisheng, with the English word next to it, Nan Feisheng. On the back is. The courtesy name is Yunqing, the nickname is Ruozhou, and the signature of the submission is also from Yushan. Borrow the telephone number 1015 of the East Bureau. Visiting only. This guy has some background. Lao Zhang thought, just for this business card, it doesn't cost more than 1 yuan to print it. Lao Zhang, you also have to go into politics. If you have money but no power, you are like a 3-legged cow. How can you stand firm? Snort. People with good background are not aggressive. Even if he says nice things with a smile on his face, he might be full of ghosts. The book is not used correctly, the podium is the White Tiger Terrace, there is no spittoon in the courtyard. Report it truthfully, Lao Zhang, you are a little overwhelmed. The more Lao Zhang thought about it, the more pessimistic he became. Foreign money was wasted. Snowflakes flew out of my heart like a bunch of them. Reported. Baihu Terrace, old textbooks, 30 yuan bonus is gone. The official document came down, all methods are against the rules and will be discontinued immediately. The students all left, 104 plus boxing ceremony 30. 170 flew. Lao Zhang was covered in cold sweat and his stomach was pounding. He slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "It's flying." All flew. No, just one flew. A woman outside the window said feebly, "What flew away?" "I was cooking for you in the house, and the eagle took one." The voice outside the window was as low as the lamentation of a resentful ghost heard in a dream. "What?" "Chicken," someone cried outside the window. "Chicken. Chicken is life, life is chicken. I will go back to my parents' house tonight and bring 2 of my brother's chicks. Can it be done?" "Do you have a brother? Are you threatening me?" "Good. Sir, you dare to bully me? Get out of here. I cannot eat me, drink my dead sow." Lao Zhang ran out and kicked the so-called dead sow in the leg. The woman fell down like a lamp grass. Turning his eyes upward, 2 soybean-sized tears were embedded in the corners of his eyes, and he closed his breath. At this time, the students had finished their lunch and gradually came back. They saw the teacher's wife lying on the ground, and the teacher kicked her with his left and right legs. They all stared blankly. It's like watching your father beating your mother or your brother beating your sister-in-law, and you don't dare to step forward to try to persuade them. Wang De came in, followed by Li Ying. They did not go home for dinner. They only bought a few sesame seeds and ate them outside the school while discussing their matters. When Wang De saw his wife lying on the ground, he immediately stopped laughing and stepped forward to help her up. "Wang De, how dare you?" Lao Zhang's mouth was as tight as 2 monkey tendons. "Master's wife is dead," Wang De said. "Dead a long time ago. This stinking piece of land is dead." Wang Dezhen is going to declare war with Lao Zhang, but he lives by laughing and doesn't know much about fighting. His whole body was shaking, he couldn't lift his hands, his legs were spinning in his pants, and his pants seemed to be a lot fatter than usual. I couldn't even speak. The tongue held a mouthful of saliva and retracted one section at a time. Wang Dezhen was helpless, he just heard a clapping sound, like a red maple leaf falling from the sky, and 5 half-purple patterns were printed on the left side of Lao Zhang's face, which was always raised. Li Ying. That's Li Ying. Wang De began to understand, hitting others with your fists without having to choose the place is called fighting. So he yelled with all his strength, "Hit!" Lao Zhang accidentally received a hot slap on his face. So based on years of experience and innate defensive instincts, I used all my martial arts skills to fight Li Ying. Wang De also rushed over with fists in hand. "Wang De!" Li Ying shouted while beating, "It's not fair for 2 to fight 1. If I fall. If you have the guts, fuck him again." Wang De stopped trembling, and his face was as red as the red apricots on the tree. Hearing Li Ying say this, he ran back and helped his wife up, and said to himself, "It's not fair for 2 to fight 1, man. Is it fair to hit a woman?" The junior and senior students all cried, and the older students stood trembling. The door was filled with idlers, very peaceful and attentive, watching them huddle together. What a hard work. What a hard work. Li Ying let go. Sun Bei ran over from outside and risked his life to decompose him. Wang De. Come and persuade. No. I'm waiting for a call. Wang De took a bowl of cold water and poured a few pills of benevolence into the wife's mouth. Okay. Well played. Lao Zhang got up from the ground and dusted off the dirt on his body. Li Ying clenched his fists without saying a word. Li Ying. Come here to fuck the teacher's wife, it's my turn to fuck him. Wang De nodded to Li Ying. Lao Zhang laughed when he heard what Wang De said. Sun Bei didn't know what Wang De meant, so he rushed over with his full body. Wang De, what are you going to do? Sun Ba stopped him. Fight. Wang De said, it's not fair for 2 to fight 1. One after another. Wagon war is not fair. How hard you all work. Sun Ba pushed and hugged Wang Delian to stop him. Then he turned back to Lao Zhang and said, Mr. Zhang, please go into the house. Don't be angry. Children don't know what's going on. Then he said to the people watching the fun, everyone, how hard it is. Sir punishing the students, there is nothing new, just go away. Lao Zhang went into the west room, watching the excitement and criticizing Lao Zhang's good kick and Li Ying's wonderful pinch on the neck, and they all dispersed. Sun Ba ran to Mrs. Zhang again and said, "Sister-in-law. Don't be angry, Mr. Zhang is just impatient." Mrs. Zhang had woken up, staring blankly at the ground. She was supporting Wang De with one hand and her own head with the other, trembling. "Master Ba. No need to waste words with her. Li boy, you are brave. Your uncle, can't escape. You are 19 and I am 49. Let's watch with our eyes open." Lao Zhang shouted in the room. Can you see with your eyes closed? Nonsense. Wang De resisted Lao Zhang on Li Ying's behalf. Good Wang De, you are a traitor on both sides. You can't run away either. The surname is Zhang. Li Ying leaned against the apricot tree and said, "I am the one who demolished your school, and I am the one who wants to kill you. Let's go and see." "It's better to set fire to the house than to demolish it, Li Ying," Wang De replied. He resumed his laughing life. Firstly, he saw that his wife had woken up and was not really dead. Secondly, he saw that Li Ying was not injured by Lao Zhang. Thirdly, he felt that today's beating was much more interesting than the usual beatings given to students. "You all have worked hard. Can you please stop saying a word?" Sun Baz tried to persuade her. "Sister-in-law, go home and stay for half the day. Wang De, send your wife to you. Li Ying, please go home for now. You all go inside and write." Sun Ba called all the other students into the classroom. Wang De and Li Ying supported the teacher's wife and walked out slowly. 6th dash. The next morning, Wang Dehuan happily received the snack money, picked up his school bag and went to school. He walked to the place where he saw the school door and suddenly remembered, have Lao Zhang forgotten what happened yesterday? How could Lao Zhang forget? He found a broken stone pile leaning against a willow tree and sat down. A soybean green moth flew gracefully from the stone pile, and humbly gave his seat to Wang De. Wang De didn't care to watch, he just thought, go home? Father won't agree. Go to school? Lao Zhang is not easy to mess with. Master's wife? Maybe she's dead. Cannot. Master is a good person, good people will not die so quickly. When Wang De tells jokes on weekdays, he is most likely to think of places that others would not think of. When dreaming, he is most likely to dream of things that others cannot dream of. Today, his brain is like a withered yellow wheat stalk. Just following the blowing of the wind, it swayed left and right without any idea. The cicadas on the willow tree shouted, "Cicada. Got it. But don't say, no anything." Then he stood up and sat down, and got up again, walking along the way to the morning market and people going to the city for business. They hurried past Wang De, some glanced at him, and some didn't even look at him, as if Wang De and the broken stone pile were equally unnoticed. When there is nothing else on weekdays, Wang De said in his heart, the birds talk to you, and the flowers and plants smile at you. When you need ideas, nothing is useful, not even people. Yes, go to Li Ying, he has an idea. What if he didn't? No, he gave me several good ideas. Wang De stood up and walked westward muttering. On weekdays, it takes 10 minutes to walk slowly from the school to Li Ying's house. Today Wang De walked for what seemed like dozens of 10 minutes, and the further he walked, the further away he seemed. And he kept looking back, always feeling that Lao Zhang was following him. He walked around. Saw it, Li Ying was sitting on the broken millstone outside the door. Normally, Wang De would have gone around Li Ying's back, quietly covered Li Ying's eyes with his hand, and asked him to guess who it was. He didn't let go until Li Ying got anxious. Wang De didn't have that interest today. He shouted from a distance, "Li Ying! Li Ying! I'm coming!" Li Ying nodded to Wang De, and the two looked at each other, neither of them thinking of talking. "Wang De, can you come in and see your uncle?" Li Ying, who didn't like to talk, broke the silence first. Li Ying's home only has 3 rooms in the north, 1 with light and 2 with darkness. There is an old bamboo chair placed against the wall of the main room, which is lonely and has nothing else to accompany it. The east room is the bedroom of Li Ying and his uncle. There is a small earthen bed along the front eaves. Opposite there is an old Nanmu table with a colorful vase from the official kiln and a silver hookah. There are many old books piled on the kong. The west room is Li Ying's sister's bedroom and the kitchen. Although there are few things, they are arranged very neatly. There is a short fence around the house, and some flowers and plants are planted at the root of the fence. Li Ying's sister lived with her aunt in the city most of the time, so it was not easy for Wang De to see her. Li Ying's uncle was in his 50s and looked like an old man in his 70s or 80s. Yellow face. Although it was washed clean, it was only covered with a layer of dark light. The two eyes are very sharp, showing that the young man is also capable and capable. He was wearing an old bamboo cloth shirt, the color of which had faded after washing. He was lying on the Kong when he saw Wangda come in and raised his head slightly to ask Wangda to sit down. After waiting for a while, he asked Li Ying to hand him the hookah. Li Ying lit the paper and twisted it for him. He sat up and smoked several bags of cigarettes at once. Wangda, Li Ying's uncle, half closed his eyes and spoke in a thin voice like a person who has been ill for a long time. I understand what's going on with you. I understand, but... We were really justified yesterday, but Lao Zhang was wrong. Wangda said. Reasonable or unreasonable, it's not a problem. I understand what happened yesterday and there is no need to say it again. Just how to deal with it from now on. Now there are several layers to this matter, your teacher's wife and Lao Zhang. Me and Lao Zhang, you two and Lao Zhang. Li Ying's uncle took a breath. I have my own way of doing things, I also thought about your master's wife. As for you two, you naturally have your own opinions. I cannot force you to obey my instructions. His voice became weaker and weaker as he spoke to himself, Wangda. Li Ying listened very attentively. Li Ying, you and Wangda go out and tell him what I told you yesterday. Wangda got up and wanted to go out. Come back. You should also discuss your matters, and I might be able to make a decision for you when you come back. After he finished speaking, he slowly lay down. The two teenagers walked out gently. The two came out and sat on the millstone. Do you know the history of my uncle? Li Ying asked. I know that he once served as a county magistrate. He lost his official position because he argued with his superior. Right. What next? I have no idea. I don't know either, but my uncle told me yesterday that he has been penniless since he lost his official position. He was disheartened and had no intention of entering politics again. So I wanted to run a business and earn 3 meals a day by myself. Later, after being introduced by someone, I borrowed 200 yuan from Lao Zhang, and another 100 yuan, for a total of 300 yuan. This is the relationship between uncle and Lao Zhang. The introducer is Wei Si from the city. Li Ying paused for a while. Then he said, Wei Si later volunteered to help his uncle manage the small business. Later Wei Si and Lao Zhang communicated and took the business into his own hands, so the uncle could not escape Lao Zhang's debt. The uncle was a person who did not like love. Money man. Because I don't love money, I fell into someone's trap. My sister and I have been with my uncle and my parents since we were children. I can't even remember their faces. Li Ying said, putting the tears on his lips and swallowing them. My uncle would never have sent me to study in Lao Zhang's school if it weren't for the debt he owed to Lao Zhang. Lao Zhang used me as a slave, and now I know that he forced his uncle to agree to him. My uncle cried so much yesterday that he could not speak. He understood, but he was old. I can't muster the energy to resist everything. This is what saddens him the most, and the reason why he only wants to die. A few days ago, Lao Zhang told his uncle that he wanted me to go on patrol. He meant to send me to that corrupt yamen. He can deduct my money from it. My uncle knew that doing this would be as good as sending me to hell, but he agreed to Lao Zhang. He just begged Lao Zhang to leave him quickly. He would rather die than talk to Lao Zhang. He was willing to sacrifice everything and beg Lao Zhang to leave quickly. My uncle is a sensible and good man, but he is old. I see. What should we do? Wangda's face turned red again. No need to say, we, Wangda. You and Lao Zhang have no bad feelings, so why bother joining the battle group? I will never stay away from you. Li Ying. I love you and your uncle. Can't help but join. My father was deceived by Lao Zhang. When he met his father, he always said, the restoration is about to happen, but Wangda's old books cannot be put down. If he puts them down, it will be too late to regret if he resumes the scientific examination in the future and fails to become a scholar. I have long thought about not studying there. But there was no chance. Now that I have finally broken up with Lao Zhang, I am happy to take the opportunity to do some activities. I have my own ambitions, and I can't die at home. I understand your wishes, but I don't want you to suffer some hardships because of me. We don't need to argue about this yet. Let me ask you, what are you going to do? I went to the city to find something. As long as I can make money, my uncle's life can be saved. What are you looking for? Wangda asked. Can't predict. Will Lao Zhang let you go? Don't let go, fight with all your strength. Good. I'll go into town with you. Ask your father for $10. Wangda thought that with 10 yuan he could live in the city for a year. I must go to the city, but you don't have to. I have my own aspirations. I didn't go to the city for you, so why not? The two of them thought of many new ways, and there was no better way than to go to the city to find trouble. Li Ying was unwilling to go into the city with Wang De, and Wang De settled the matter by talking life and death. They came in together to see Li Ying's uncle. 7th. Uncle. We decided to go to the city to look for trouble together. Wang De spoke first. I want to see what the world is like. Li Ying had the need to look for trouble. The two of them went together, taking care of each other. Good. Li Ying's uncle smiled. What I'm worried about is that Lao Zhang won't let Li Ying go. I'm afraid that after I leave, Lao Zhang and uncle will cause trouble. You all sit down. You still don't understand the content of this question. Lao Zhang had to tell Li Ying to leave, and he couldn't come to make trouble with me. Now it's not just about money, it's about people. Of course we are all human beings. Wang De said with a smile. What I call a person is a woman. Of course Mrs. Zhang is a woman. Wang De. I don't want you to interrupt at the moment. You can talk after I finish speaking. Li Ying's uncle was afraid that Wang De would be unhappy, so he smiled at Wang De. Then he lit the paper, twisted it, and took a few puffs of cigarette. He put down the pipe. I asked Li Ying for a bowl of cold water and rinsed my mouth. He stood up and spit the water into a broken tile bowl, then straightened the folds of his shirt. Wang De, Li Ying's uncle looked at the two teenagers. It was as if his eyes helped him express feelings that could not be expressed in words. The problem now is a woman. Li Ying. She is your sister. Li Ying couldn't help but stand up. Under the guidance of his uncle's eyes, he sat down again without saying a word. Don't be angry. Listen to me slowly. The old man continued. Ms. Zhang was sold to Lao Zhang by her brother more than 10 years ago. He owed Lao Zhang a debt, so she made a debt exchange tool. She is a bit old and ugly now. So Lao Zhang wanted to buy your sister according to the law, because I also owed him money. He signaled several times, but I ignored him. I'm not a beast. Li Ying. Get a bowl of cold water. He lowered his head as low as possible, drank a bowl of cold water, and handed the bowl to Li Ying. He never looked up. But now this is your chance. Because before I don't allow his marriage, he will never be so vicious that it will fail. Then, Li Ying, if you go to the city, I, Mr. Zhang, will have to let you go. As for your master's wife. When Lao Zhang came to propose marriage again, I asked him to release her first and then discuss the marriage. I think he must demand some ransom, and if he utters such a tone, then this is our chance to regain your master's wife's freedom. That colorful bottle. He didn't raise his head, but pointed roughly towards the table with his hand. It's a valuable thing that I would rather go hungry than sell. Li Ying, your father gave it to me. You take the bottle to the city tomorrow and ask your uncle to sell it. It probably costs at least 100 yuan. You use 20 yuan to look for trouble in the city, and keep the rest with your uncle. When Lao Zhang really wants to free your wife, we will have dozens of yuan to ransom her. In the future, she will die of cold and hunger. We can no longer control it, so of course we want to. But we let her understand when she died that she was a free body, not Lao Zhang's slave. If your wife regains her freedom. Lao Zhang must have forced me to write a letter to sell my niece. Li Ying's uncle stopped talking and picked up the hookah. He didn't smoke, but just looked at the pipe with his eyes open. Death is inevitable. I am afraid of Lao Zhang's laughter, but I am not afraid of death. Uncle. Li Ying interrupted his uncle. You don't have to say, die, is it possible? The old man didn't answer. Old Zhang. You. Wang De couldn't bear it anymore. He stood up and shook his fists toward the east, as if Lao Zhang was standing outside the east wall. Wang De. Sit down. Old man Li stared blankly at the colorful bottles on the case. Wang De sat down and banged his fist against the edge of the Kong. I'm sorry for people, I'm sorry for Lao Zhang, I don't repay my debts, I'm trying to deal with it with death, I'm not right, I'm not a hero. The old man's voice became softer, like the drizzle on an autumn night. Drop by drop, the coldness penetrated the mood of the two teenagers. You, Wang De, Li Ying, remember, good people are prisoners of evil people. If good people do not hold justice and fight against evil people, good people are arsenic for suicide. If good intentions are just weakness, conformity, and cowardice. I am hopeless myself. I would like you to cut off the heads of evil people in the future, but I don't want you to dig out your hearts and show them to evil people. As for money, you must remember, be careful about how you get money and be careful about how you spend it. When I was young, I had a silly and kind heart. Money came in with the left hand and spent with the right hand, and today I have to die. I'm not afraid of death, but if I die, I will be sorry to others, at least to Lao Zhang. In the past, I advocated repaying evil with kindness, but now, I advocate repaying evil with straightness. I used to believe that money can be spent carelessly. Don't be greedy. Now, you can't be greedy for money, and you can't spend it recklessly. Wang De, you don't need to go into the city. After Li Ying leaves, Lao Zhang is in need of help. He will never treat you lightly just because you fight with him. If you see Lao Zhang every day, at least he can ask me about his manipulation of me. However, I dare not object to your wish. It is up to you to decide whether to go to the city or not. In fact, it seems that there is no need to enter the city. That's all I have to say. I dare not say whether it's right or not. You go. No need to miss my death, I deserve to die. Old Man Li stretched out his coat, slowly lay down, picked up a book, and covered his face. His whole body remained motionless, with only the slight rise and fall of his lapels, reflecting his short breathing. If you could repay Lao Zhang's money, would you still seek death, uncle? Wang De asked, how can I pay him back? I went home and told my father that he lent you the money, and Li Ying will pay it back to my father slowly in the future. Silly boy. Your father is a rich man. He has. Once the grain is collected, there are dozens of yuan. A few dozen yuan? That's what you spend for a year. Silly boy, thank you. Vomit. Wang De was confused. It turns out that you are not rich if you have a few dozen yuan. So, how much can you be considered wealthy? What an embarrassing summer noon silence. The red apricots on the trees and the late wheat in the fields are so hot that I can't even bear it. The hot wind brought with it the noise in the city. The sleepy ones fell asleep, while the restless ones cried as they listened. At this time, Wang De and Li Ying sat on the broken millstone again. Wang De looked at the ugly old crow with withered feathers. He looked around and shook his bald head, wanting to steal the red apricots on the tree. Li Ying lowered his head and watched the ants on the ground besieging a green tender locust tree insect. The old crow nodded briskly, picked up a round red apricot in his mouth, flapped his broken wings and flew away against the fence. Wang De followed the old crow as he turned his eyes to the tree to the east. The old crow with an ugly face and a sweet heart handed the apricots into the nest. The crow's hoarse laughter spread out the simple and beautiful love. Li Ying unknowingly used his hands to scatter the little yellow ants biting on the green insect. He forgot that his hand was held tightly by Wang De. He pulled out his hand and Wang De turned around. Li Ying. Ah. Wang De. The two people's eyes met at the same place. The bitterness that touched their tear ducts. They cried without shame or hypocrisy. Crying to a close friend, and laughing are the only two happy things for human beings. Are you done crying? I'm done. Wang De wiped his red eyes. Stop crying. Good. It's time to laugh. Today's crying and laughing, on this broken millstone, is the beginning of our career. Li Ying. Look ahead, the shadow is behind us and the light is in front of us. Laugh. Wang Dezhen laughed, and Li Ying was also happy for no reason. This joy squeezed the tears out of his eyes. Wang De, I still don't agree with you entering the city. I have to go. I have my wish. Wang De paused for a while. Li Ying, how is your sister? He blushed. My uncle and aunt are taking care of her. Yeah. Wang De didn't say anything else. You should go home to eat. If the old man doesn't allow you to enter the city, don't be stubborn. Father can't control it, I have my own aspirations. Wang De said and looked around. Li Ying, where is my school bag? Is it in the house? Come in and have a look. The two people walked in gently, and old man Li seemed to have fallen asleep. Li Ying climbed onto the Kong to get Wang De's school bag. The old man opened his eyes slightly. Where's Wang De? Here. Wang De. You don't need to tell others about us. Come here. Wang De walked over. The old man took his hand and sighed. Wang De didn't know what to say, so he just twisted his neck and looked at Li Ying. Wang De. This is a critical time for a young man. I'm done. Go. Tell your father that when you have nothing to do, come and talk. Wang De agreed. Pick up your school bag and walk out. The old man looked out at Wang De through the small glass on the window and said to himself. Cute. Cute boy. 8th. People in the countryside don't care at all about the dragon flag, 5-color flag or Japanese flag hanging in the city. Little attention is paid to the emperor, president, or queen being in power. But the people in the city are very different. They walk on the streets, sit in tea shops, and sleep at home, as if they have some kind of authority consciously. People with school backgrounds sit on bamboo chairs in the park. Holding a newspaper and reading 4 or 6 sentences, he believed himself to be the master of the country without any doubt. Let's not talk about responsibilities and obligations. Anyway, the masters of the country have the opportunity to get rich and get promoted. They have the opportunity to increase their wealth and increase their official position. Who dares to say that what I think is wrong, and who dares to say that I don't have authority? Vomit. Rice is more expensive, there are more soldiers, taxes are heavier, no matter what. That's a country thing, that's a country thing. Not only did they think this way, they actually formed a party group to fight for autonomy and demand civil rights. Those who utter words and see the words start to work. Not only are they in full swing in the city, they also go to the countryside to spread the gospel zealously. Beijing Autonomy Discussion Committee, Beijing Autonomy Co-Organizer Committee, Beijing Autonomy Listening Committee, Beijing Autonomy Self-Promotion Committee. The black signs with white letters, the white signs with green letters, and the green signs with red letters are just like the Wangmatzi, and Wangmatzi in the newly opened market, all hung up brilliantly in the main alley. The countryside, though, cannot be so colorful. But at the beginning of the village and at the end of the village, there was a big sign of the Suburban Autonomous Association. Although the villagers don't know the words, they can guess. Second brother. We are recruiting troops again. A big sign has been put up at the head of the village. Do you see it? One said. No. I heard that 3 hectares of land were enclosed as a cemetery for the British in Dongjiu-Mingxiang. This is the mark. One of them answered like this. 2, 3, 4, as for the 7 or 8, I can't tell whether they are recruiting soldiers or setting up foreign graveyards. But they have a way of masturbating, one of these 7 or 8 people, Carpenter Yang. It was determined that the sign with the elusive black characters was made of acacia wood. Uncle Wang initially argued that it was willow wood. After several appraisals and his belief in poplar carpenters, he concluded that it was acacia wood and then left with satisfaction. A few days later, people in Erlang town told each other in surprise and novelty, the Erlang temple in Guanli will hold a meeting tomorrow. Lao Zhang, Sun Ba, officials from the Yamen will all go, as well as countless decent people in the city. Lao Zhang, Sun Ba is our representative here. This news became the material for people in the town to talk at sunset under the willow shade after dinner. Uncle Wang said with great respect to Sun Ba and Lao Zhang. After all, gentlemen and gentlemen should wear watches only when they have a watch to wear. What can we wear? But Chu San curled his lips, the veins on his head swelled, and said with a sneer. Uncle Wang. Although Chu San has never played with a watch, he can tell the time more accurately than a watch. No matter it is cloudy or sunny, he will never delay things. Those who have a watch can't sleep late and get up late, and they will delay things. Those who don't have a watch can also take advantage of everything. Uncle Wang also agreed with Chu San's opinion. So everyone discussed going to Guanli tomorrow to see the excitement. The sun gradually moved behind the western mountain, and a line of evening smoke was lightly locked on the earth. It was, no expression can be brought. It's time for the villagers to go to bed. The next day, several patrols were posted early outside Erlang Temple. Lao Zhang and Sun Ba both wore linen shirts and new satin shoes as they walked in and out. Lao Zhang raised his face and pressed hard on the red leather soles that had been smeared with kerosene. Make a crackling sound. The one in front is Sun Ba, and the one behind is Lao Zhang. The villagers standing outside the temple pointed and said. Then the 2 people came out again, and the villagers whispered to each other. This time it's Lao Zhang in front and Sun Ba in the back. Lao Zhang gently twisted his neck and glanced left and right, as if he saw something, but also as if he didn't see anything, just like the general of the army reviewing the army. People from the city came one after another, and the patrolman kept shouting, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way! It's crowded here. It hinders the representatives' access. Go home and see if anyone is dead. What does holding a self-governing meeting have to do with you? Go! Go!" The villagers also laughed to themselves and understood. It can be said that the Autonomous Association will not give us a bucket of rice, so why bother to serve as volunteer street workers here? Then they gradually dispersed, leaving only a group of children, still vying to appreciate the scenery of representatives from all walks of life. The notice for the meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock, but it wasn't until 12 o'clock that everyone arrived. Just listen to a ringtone. Everyone was sitting under the canopy of Erlang Temple, and it was considered a meeting. The important figures are Nan Feisheng, the academic leader of the northern suburbs, Long Shugu, an officer of the Salvation Army in the north of the city, Sun Zhanyuan, Sun Ba's uncle, a retired guard, Li Shandong, president of the Chamber of Commerce in the north of the city, and Lao Zhang and Sun Ba. The rest were probably ambush soldiers of representatives from various walks of life. I heard that in the National Assembly, ambushes are called political parties, and in the Citizens League, they are called supporting the corner. Some disgraceful Beijingers also call those who support the corner as supporting the bad feet. Want it? An ambush is someone who listens to someone's command and waits for something to happen in a group sport. Everyone sat down and whispered to each other, talking about family affairs, state affairs, and world affairs at the same time. No one can remember how to hold a meeting. However, Sun Shobei couldn't help it, stood up and said, "Everyone. What to do, what to do. Don't waste your time staring in vain." When Nan Feisheng's subordinates heard what Sun Shobei said was unpleasant, they immediately wanted to gossip. Nan Feisheng gave him a look, so the one who wanted to speak swallowed his words completely. Nan Feisheng stood up and said, "We should elect an interim chairman and discuss the charter." What Mr. Nan said is that, in my opinion, we should elect Sun Laogard as interim chairman. Lao Zhang said, "Thank you for your hard work, my uncle is a little deaf." These civilized things are not as well known as the academic affairs master, but Mr. Nan has worked so hard. After Sun Ba finished speaking, Nan Feisheng's subordinates all clapped their hands and shouted, "Agree! Agree!" The rest of the people had not finished talking about family affairs, national affairs, and world affairs. They heard the applause and asked, "What to do now?" Before they could find out, Nan Feisheng had already stepped onto the podium and bowed deeply to everyone. "My lord, today, if you have no talent and no virtue, how can you bear this important responsibility?" There was a burst of applause from the audience, and Mr. Sun maintained his long nails. It was inconvenient to applaud, so he stood up and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Okay. What important responsibilities does an interim chairman have?" "Nonsense," a young man from the right corner of the audience said loudly. Nan Feisheng didn't pay attention, but his subordinates couldn't bear it and immediately stood up. Shaking his head, staring, he put his hands on his waist. "Ask. Who said that? This is an insult to the chairman. Whoever said that, get out quickly, otherwise it will not benefit him." Nagarjuna's subordinates also all stood up, including the young man who was speaking, and they all had their hands on their waists and glared angrily. "Everyone, please sit down, we are doing this for public reasons, not for private reasons, so why bother, argue, and end up being petty?" The chairman still spoke in a high-profile manner, saying 2 words at a time. The left and right parties sat down again inexplicably, but they kept saying, "I'll beat you to death. You dare. Your father is not a good man. Your father is not a good person. Everyone." Sun Shobei was really angry. "My uncle and nephew from the Sun family are local gentlemen. We were the ones who borrowed the temple as the meeting place. We were the ones who notified the local area to send troops to suppress them. We were the ones who prepared the refreshments. Want to fight? This is clearly an insult to my Sun family's face. Those who talk about beating me as a guard are treating fighting as a way to get honey. If you are not convinced, do it with me, old man." Sun Shobei's angry face looked like a cut red meat watermelon. His hands were trembling as he walked out. "Bai. Walk. The meeting is closed. Walk. Sun Ba is leaving. I'm afraid I might offend the public. If I don't leave, I'm afraid the old man will be even more angry." In the midst of a dilemma, Lao Zhang stood up and said, "It's very hot today. I'm afraid the discussion won't produce any results. It's better to nominate a few representatives to draft the constitution." Everyone in ambush shouted, "Agree." Then the left corner said, "Let's lift Nan Feisheng." The right corner said, "Nagar Shigu," followed by Zhang Mingde, Sun Zhanyuan, Sun Ding, and Li Fucai, all of them who probably had an ambush were raised as drafting committee member. The chairman heard a shout from below and he said, "Passed." People who were lifted up. Quan smiled at the crowd. Only Sun Laobei heard everyone shouting, "Sun Zhanyuan," and he became even more angry. "Sun Zhanyuan, sitting at home like a little emperor, what does it mean to represent?" The chairman ordered the bell to ring to adjourn the meeting, but everyone was not interested in listening to Sun Shobei's words and walked out one after another. They conveniently wrapped their snacks in handkerchiefs and ate them while walking. Later, Sun Ba checked the utensils and heard that 2 tea bowls were missing. 9th. Sun Ba put his uncle into the car and was about to enter the temple. Lao Zhang came out and gave Sun Ba a look. Sun Ba handed the ear to Lao Zhang. "Old man, I drank a lot today." Lao Zhang tilted his head and said in a low voice, "There were some tantrums at the meeting. You can go to the city with them and sit down at Jioha residence to suppress their anger. There are not many people there. I'll go home for dinner and rush back to prepare some tea for you. I'll probably have the rest of the day to sort out the regulations. If you want to treat us, you are indispensable." Sun Ba said. You're welcome, I'll have more days to eat you, I don't care about today. Lao Zhang smiled. Stop messing around, let's go together, how hard it is. Sun Ba pulled Lao Zhang into the temple, while Nan Feixing was waiting under the ceiling to take off his coat to cool off. Lao Zhang nodded to them and said, Everyone. I'll show you my respect to Grandpa's son and come to Juheju to have something to eat. Fortunately, it's not far. I'll come back after eating so we can discuss everything. Let's discuss it first. Nagarjuna said. Since it is the 8th master's kindness, we must join in the fun. Nan Feixing showed a particularly affectionate look, twirling his little yellow beard and said, Mr. Zhang, tell the soldiers to hire some foreign cars. Sun Ba said to Lao Zhang. I have my chartered car. Nagarjuna said, then walked around the circle and looked at the crowd. After the rickshaw was hired, everyone walked out of the temple with their stomachs aching rather than showing off their busy eating attitude. Everyone got in the car. Lao Zhang was still standing outside the door, pointing towards the temple with his hand and talking to a patrolman. The man on the roadside didn't believe that Lao Zhang was the general manager of the Autonomous Association. The coachmen stretched their backs and arrived at Education Gate. After entering the city, the road is slightly flat. Several cart drivers speeded up each other, trying to get 1 or 2 more copper coins. The rickshaw pullers who were not doing business on the roadside shouted, Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So these few people looked like beasts, and they felt that they had to work hard to win some glory. Sun Ba wanted to go to the restaurant first to show that he was the master. Lao Zhang was begging the passers-by to appreciate his majesty, but he was only dissatisfied that the driver was running too slowly. Nan Feixing was used to riding express trains, so it was no surprise. Nagarjuna wanted to show off his chartered carriage, so naturally he would not stop the driver. Li Shandong was very hungry and wished that the driver did not have 8 legs. There are drivers who are eager to win glory, and there are drivers who are arrogant and selfish, so under the scorching sun, several drivers are soaring as if driven by electricity. Arrive at Disheng Bridge. There is a bay of green water to the west. Slowly flowing from Jingya Lake, note, Jingya Lake, now Jishui Lake, to the east, several barefoot children on the bluestones on both sides lowered their heads and fished for wheat ears in the water with slender bamboo poles. Fish. There is a lotus pond to the east of the bridge, with green reeds surrounding the shore. A few egrets stand quietly among the green lotuses, beautiful and cruel, waiting to rob the small fish that come and go. On the north bank, there are green tiles and high pavilions. The residence of the Qing regent still retains the dignity of the nobles of Tianhuang. A gust of south wind. Blowing the weeping poplars on the shore, the green cover in the pond shook into an incomprehensible green wave, and the fragrance softly shook the poetry. Even the blind can still feel the sweetness of the lotus pond with their sense of smell. Those with eyes can't help but stop and take a look. Even Lao Zhang's aesthetic concepts are floating in his mind, ready to come out. However, the philosopher's sense of beauty is somewhat different from that of ordinary people. Suppose that egret is made of silver and you secretly catch one in the middle of the night. How much is it worth? That green lotus leaf. How useful it would be if it were all the big money that was used to cast Yuan Shirkai's head. However, money as big as a lotus leaf is not very convenient to hold. Fortunately, if you have money, are you afraid that you won't be able to settle it? Everyone was admiring the scenery. Who pays attention to how the living people dragging the car onto the long and sloping stone bridge? Those coachmen were also used to it, and all muscle movements seemed to be based on instinct, just like cats, dogs, cows, and horses. Bend over and lower your head almost to your knees. He strained his eyes to look left and right, then lifted the car diagonally to the top of the bridge in one breath. Immediately he straightened his back, took a breath, pressed his elbows on the handlebars for a moment, leaned back slightly, and slid down with his heels scraping against the rough stones on the bridge. Suddenly there was a chirp and several ouch-s, and Officer Long did not change his sitting posture at all, as if an adult had picked him up and dropped him firmly on the dirt road under the bridge. Lao Zhang's car followed Nagarjuna's car, and he saw the car in front of him fell down. The driver stepped aside. In order to maintain the balance of strength, Lao Zhang put all the gravity on the lower part, turned his back away from the car, and shook it left and right. Then the car and the people rolled down along the inclination of the bridge along with a stream of dry dust. Lao Zhang's head was on the driver's buttocks, and the driver's head was hitting Officer Long's back. So Officer Long was changed from a seated statue to a reclining Buddha. The drivers of the 3 cars behind were very quick and rushed backwards, trying not to slip away. Nagarjuna dropped an official gauze coat into an earth-colored sack. He couldn't help but get angry. He got up and ran past the coachman. The pitiful driver, Zhao Si, was lying on the road with half of the handlebar in his hand, his left leg soaked in human blood. Officer Long was also stunned. Lao Zhang only rubbed off a piece of skin from his palms. He wanted to lie down on the ground and wait for others to come and help him, but the rough stones heated by the scorching sun were as hot as a stove. He had no choice but to get up by himself and scolded the coachman for everything. The driver only looked around to see if his car was damaged, and had no intention of understanding Lao Zhang's poetic criticism. The rest of the coachmen put their cars under the bridge, wiping their sweat, nodding to each other and saying with half a smile, "Tell him to run. It's none of his business to take care of the pancake rolls and green onions." Pedestrians on the road immediately formed a circle naturally. The patrolman standing on the bridge waited until people had formed a circle before holding up the target of the iron knife and wearing the leather shoes nailed with iron palms. "Come here," twisting and turning. First he asked, "Is the person in the car injured? You're not satisfied with your clothes being stained, and you're still injured?" Officer Long said angrily. 365 days a year, I ride in the car every day, and I have never experienced such hardship. Today we have money to buy flowers. If you don't have money to buy a pot, plant it here. What do you patrol officers do?" Lao Zhang was showing off his might, speaking half to the patrolman and half to the audience. "What should I do about this coachman?" The patrolman asked. My name is Nagarjuna, an officer of the Salvation Army. This is my business card. You call the Salvation Army hospital and someone will come and carry him. But no need for but, Nagarjuna has a name, and no one except you, the new errand, knows about us. Just do whatever I tell you. The patrol police in Beijing are the most obedient to public opinion. As long as you wear a big shirt and take out a business card with an official title printed on it, you can order them without worrying about the police. If you are powerful, you can call the police and tell the police when you poop in the middle of the street, which is true. There will be patrolmen cleaning the streets for you." Nagarjuna understood this and handed his business card to the patrolman. The real patrolman raised his hand to him and complied with everything. Officer Long got into the car again and ran faster than before to Jeju. 10th. The Chinese nation is ancient and brave. How can you see it? Proof at the restaurant. As soon as I entered the restaurant, I was met with 3 feet of flames and oil stars flying everywhere. The cook, who was as fat as a judge and as evil as an evil god, was holding a large iron ladle with a diameter of 2 feet and a handle 3 feet long, containing soy, vinegar, oil, salt, chicken, fish and duck meat. Treat them equally with spitting soot, fly excrement, and pig hair. When frying, shake the oil pan, and the 3-foot-high flames will rush to the pan, making a pearl-inverted curtain. The ladle holds the slices of meat, and with a flick of the wrist, the long tongue catches the slices of meat from the air. Treat them equally with spitting soot, fly excrement, and pig hair. When frying, shake the oil pan, and the 3-foot-high flames will rush to the pan, making a pearl-inverted curtain. The ladle holds the slices of meat, and with a flick of the wrist, the long tongue catches the slices of meat from the air. Taste the intensity of the flavor. After trying it, he spit the meat slices into the pot again and sneezed twice like a tiger pouncing on the pot. When the heat is sufficient, the ladle and the iron pot make a loud clang, which makes greedy ghosts salivate 2 miles away. Taste the intensity of the flavor. After trying it, he spit the meat slices into the pot again and sneezed twice like a tiger pouncing on the pot. When the heat is sufficient, the ladle and the iron pot make a loud clang, which makes greedy ghosts salivate 2 miles away. This is the first step into the restaurant. After walking a few steps, several young people standing in the hall said one by one, "The master is here. The master is here." Then the young ones raised their voices and shouted, "Look at your seats," several times. Then there was a burst of slapping of shoe dust, popping of soda pop, swishing of handkerchiefs, buzzing of flies. Flies in restaurants are evergreen in winter and summer. Gula Gula's expanded range of mouthwash. This is the second level. The host and guest are seated together, no dishes or meals are ordered, and Huang is sung first. Regardless of whether the huqin is high or low, or whether the voice is good or bad, if someone sings it, someone will applaud it, and if someone applauds it, someone will sing it again. Just care about your throat, not other people's eardrums. This is the third level. After the Huang song, we order wine and food. We don't order the small ones even if they are beneficial. We don't order the expensive ones even if we eat them to make us feel dizzy. The wine must be bought in original form from a time-honored brand. The tea should be brewed and stored in the refrigerator. In winter, we eat fresh melons and mung beans, and in summer, we eat fried sticky cakes. When the food and drinks are served, first give the order by guessing the game, then give a slap in the face. The sound is like a lion's roar. Take 3 cups, and the energy will flow through the rainbow. The food and drinks for the guests are often brought in, lest they are insufficient. The guest's wine is dry, and he is as drunk as mud. This is the 4th level. When the roasted duck or stuffed chicken comes to the table, the rice bowl is raised and I don't know where to send it. I hold the spoon upside down and stick it diagonally on my eyebrows. Then there were bouts of nausea and bouts of vomiting. I didn't taste anything when I ate it. When I vomited, I tasted the sweetness every time. I drank Rendan and helped me get on the cart. When the wind blew, I gradually woke up and hummed again, the late emperor, the yellow gelding horse, in preparation for meeting again in the evening. This is the 5th level. With these 5 passes, you can actually cut them off and lock them down, and gallop as if you are entering a deserted land. This is called Eat and Be Brave. Happy communication is based on a healthy appetite. Of course it is a difficult motto. When Sun Ba arrived at Jeju, of course he had to go through the 5 levels of the restaurant in sequence. Nagarjuna refused to drink alcohol due to religious reasons. Jing Lao Zhang repeatedly said, beer comes from foreign countries, and Christianity also comes from foreign countries. Of course there is no conflict if you drink a little. In addition, Sun Baku kept insisting that he must scare Officer Long, so he drank 3 bottles of 5-star beer. Drink down the wine. He started talking cordially with the crowd. Speaking of the coachman Zhao Si, Officer Long made a firm conclusion. Zhao Si forgot to pray to God in the morning. How could he not break his leg? He usually runs much faster than today, so why was he not in danger? Let's go back to Dishengmen, or, it's almost 3 o'clock now. Sun Ba asked. I don't see the need to go back, Lao Zhang said sincerely. I've eaten you for breakfast, and I won't spare you for dinner. I won't bother you as a guest. Let's go for a walk outside the city. Stroll. Let's discuss the charter another day. It's easy for brothers to get together. The articles of association are not difficult to draw up. Some of them are from autonomous associations elsewhere. You can just borrow a copy to make additions and changes. Mr. Nan said to Sun Ba. Mr. Nan, if you are distracted, go find one. If you revise and revise, you will submit the paper. Fortunately, can people still be tied up by the regulations? Nagarjuna said with obvious experience. So, Mr. Nan, how hard you have worked. Sun Ba bowed to Nan Feisheng. It's nothing, Master Ba, where shall we go? Nan Feisheng asked. Li Shandong ate too much and fell asleep. Suddenly I vaguely heard someone talking about the city. He lifted his head from the table, opened his eyes and said, I'm going out of the city to listen to a play. Xiao Shangxiang's 3 Hangings. No need to talk, just talk and enjoy. Let's go. Xiao Shangxiang. Hang yourself 3 times. Lao Zhang never paid his own money to listen to plays, so he naturally lacked knowledge about dramas. I don't know what kind of perfume Xiaoxiang is, and hanging himself 3 times is such a strange thing. I couldn't ask in my mouth, but I said in my heart, let's take a look at this strange thing. There is probably no way to escape being forced to hang for debt. Hanging yourself for not paying your debts is not something you were born with. He stood up and patted Sun Ba on the shoulder. Shopkeeper Li is the best at commenting on operas. What he said is definitely right. Mr. Ba, your request will wait until you marry your concubine. Lao Li and I will give you a big show. Is it true that Mr. Ba wants to marry Xiaoxing? When will you marry? Nan Fei asked, blowing his little yellow mustache with lively eyebrows. Thank you for your hard work. Mr. Nan. Listen to Lao Zhang. Why should I take a concubine? Marrying a concubine is a personal matter, and listening to a play is everyone's business. Mr. Ba, are you going? If you don't go, I have to leave. Li Shandong said half awake and half asleep. Yes. Shopkeeper Li, please invite me, let's go. Lao Zhang followed suit and put on a big shirt. What a hard work. Come along, my please. Officer Long must have refused to go, so he said goodbye and left. Sun Ba paid the meal bill. I went out to the city with Lao Zhang and others to have fun. 11th. Hey. Li Ying. How are you today? What else can I do today? I'm going to spend all my money and I can't find anything. I'm so anxious. I decided to become a patrol officer. What? Be a patrol officer? You go, I won't. I have my ambition. You can go home. If you can't find anything to do, go home? Go home with your tail between your legs? I can't. Hello. Li Ying. Everyone in the city has a second name. I met several people who asked me Taipei when they met. We should also have a Taipei. If you can't find anything, what does it matter if you have 10,000 names? Perhaps there will be something to do as soon as there is a famous person. So, your name is Li Wenjing, and my name is Wang Bujing. It means, you want to be a patrolman, but I don't want to be. Do you think it's good? You. Just telling jokes and not doing anything serious. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Today you and I are going our separate ways, and maybe we can get more news than if we were together. No. I'm scared alone. Wangda said with a pout. What's so scary about a sunny day? Drink. The soldiers with guns on the road, the foreigners on motorcycles, the white-faced ones. Black face. The big girls at the temple fair, my father said, they are all tigers. You won't hide from them? I can hide from soldiers and foreigners, but I am afraid of them and love to see them. Li Ying and Wang De have been living in Li Ying's aunt's house since they entered the city. They prepared their own meals, went out to look for work during the day, and came back to sleep at night. The two of them lived in a small north room of Li Ying's aunt. Food is easy to eat, money is easy to spend, but work is not easy to find. Li suddenly lost a lot of weight, and his brows and heart were wrinkled together. Wang De is still optimistic. Police Li 1. My name is Li Ying. Okay, Li Ying, where are you going? Uncertain. What about me? Wang De opened his eyes wide and round. Casual. You can't just do it casually. If you want to go east, I will go east too. Shouldn't we go all the way? At least if you want to go east, I will go west. Wang De took out a copper coin from his bag, floated it on his thumbnail, and prepared to flick it into the air. Want the head or the tail? The head is to the east and the tail is to the west. Wang De. There is no trouble in your world. Li Ying smiled slightly. Explain. First and last. Head. With a bang, Wang De bounced the money up. He squatted on the ground with eyes wide open and watched the money fall to the ground. Head. You go east. Goodbye, Li Ying. I wish you success. Wang De picked up the money and walked west with a smile. Li Ying's aunt lives on Huguosi Street. Wang De walked out of the west entrance of Huguo Temple and hesitated again. Should he go south or north? To the south? It's the Shixi Archway. Except for the man killing the live sheep with a big knife on the roadside, there is nothing distinctive and glorious about it. To the north? It's Zinjiku, Zizaman. That's where the poor live. That can help you find something. Wang De thought for a long time. Go north, maybe you will see some new things. He walked a short distance north and saw an alley on the east side of the street. A blue sign on the wall said, "Depth of hundreds of flowers," written in white. Beijing is great, look at how elegant the name of this alley is, he said to himself. Needless to say, this is the place where the hermit lives, otherwise it would have such an elegant name. While he was thinking, he unknowingly moved his legs into the alley. The alley is narrow and long. There are walls made of broken bricks on both sides. The south wall rarely gets sunlight. There is a thin layer of green moss, and there are a few faint silver tracks crawling across the high places. It feels slightly more spacious as you walk in, but the walls on both sides are more broken. On the north side of the road, there is a short wall that was washed away by the rain. Everything in the courtyard can be seen from the outside. There are 3 low houses in the courtyard, with reddish-red peppercorns hanging from the eaves. There were many corn cobs covered with pink moss piled on the steps. A few vines of morning glories lazily crawled on the east wall, and a few light blue flowers bloomed indifferently. In the courtyard, a woman with disheveled hair squatted under the east wall, humming and singing children's songs, nursing a skinny child, as thin as a small yellow leather bag wrapped with some bones. Wang De thought to himself, this must be the hermit's wife. I heard that Mrs. Hermit didn't like to comb her hair and wash her face. He stood under the south wall hoping that the hermit would come out and see the true face of the hermit. After waiting and waiting, the hermit did not come out. There were bursts of children crying in the courtyard. The hermit's young master is crying. Then the woman scolded the child, the hermit's wife is scolding. After waiting for a long time, Wang De changed his mind, the hermit may be dead, and this is his orphan and widow. That would be so pitiful. People are all going to die. Yes, but the hermit died faster. Because he has not yet reached the point of death, so he must die first. Humans are strange things, born and dead. Even after he died, he was carried in a small wooden box and demonstrated on the street. Wang De leaned forward and looked secretly into the courtyard. The woman had already entered the house. The child was sleeping on a small wooden board. Then he walked out of the depths of flowers in despair. Zhi Bao, Min Bao, look at the news that this son killed his father. A newspaper seller came from the south. The newspaper seller. Wang Da stopped the newspaper seller head-on. Are there any news about hermits or advertisements for people to work? Do you want to buy it or not? Newspaper sellers don't read newspapers. Wang Da bought one and put it under his arm. He thought, if the newspaper seller doesn't read the newspaper, what's the benefit of selling it? Strangeness. Can't think of a reason. Most things in the city make no sense. Wang Da was sitting outside a shop, opening the newspaper and reading a novel first, and then reading the news. Suddenly he saw on the back of the newspaper, "We need a secretary, who is fluent in writing and science, and whose handwriting is clear. Monthly salary negotiable. Zhang's house on Treasury Street. When people are looking for something but can't find it, there is some news, and there seems to be a great possibility of success." Wang Da is also the same. He stood up and walked towards Dongcheng. His head was covered with sweat as he walked. Arriving at Treasury Street, there is a red building. There is a bronze plaque hanging on the green iron fence at the door, engraved with Zhang Zhai. Wang Da went up the steps, stomped the dust off his shoes, and looked inside. There was an old man sitting in the concierge, with kind eyebrows and good eyes, as if he were a servant from generation to generation. A young man was lying there, his face washed white as snow. The head oil is pitch black. Wang Da gently opened the door and said, "Thank you." Another one. Advertisements are more powerful than flypaper. They stick to you in a day. The young man said, "Are you here to read the newspaper? There is no hope. Go home as soon as possible." "I haven't seen your master, how can it be that there is no hope?" Wang Da said without any humility. "Our boss hasn't gotten up yet, and even if he gets up, he won't be able to see you first. Even if he sees you, with your big shirt, he will feel unhappy when he meets his boss, so I might as well sentence you to 5 years in prison. I wish I were a judge. Because of your black paint, Ling Qi will be restored." Wang Dekong learned to be tough after breaking up with Lao Zhangda. "Why don't you speak human language? You don't speak human words." Gentlemen." The old man grabbed Wang Da. "I'll call you back. Our master really hasn't gotten up yet. I'll go with you to see our eldest young master. Come." Wang Da followed the old man into the courtyard. He passed through the corridor and walked to the 3 cabins behind the building. The old servant asked Wang Da to wait, and he went in and reported back. "Go in." The old servant nodded to Wang Da. Wang Da went in and saw that there were no furnishings in the room, and it seemed that it was not a house for people to live in. There is a foreign-style couch against the wall, with a young man reclining on it. He was holding a copy of Leisure Records, and was looking at it intently. The boy wore gold-rimmed glasses. The upper and lower gold teeth in the mouth hold a half-foot-long Luzon cigarette, as thick as a small yam with a gold hoop in the middle. It's not that thick, and Wang Da couldn't see the man's gold teeth. He wore 13 or 4 gold rings on his hands, and a pair of soft-soled shoes with gold rims on his feet. There is a gold watch chain thicker than an onion across the chest, and a bunch of gold buttons as big as garlic heads are on the opposite front of the coat, weighing about 1 pound or 12 taels in total. "Are you here to do something?" The young man flipped through the newspaper without looking at Wang Da. "Yes." "How old are you this year?" 19 years old. "Good. Let's go to work tomorrow. May I ask about my salary and work?" "Come in at 8 in the morning and leave at 8 in the evening. There are many things to do, so I work at night." After sweeping the study and paying for documents, my concubine went out to wait on the bus. "Are you looking for a secretary?" "Secretary in a broad sense." "Salary?" $4 a month. "Wait and play cards to share some change." The young man never looked at Wang Da, and Wang Da walked out without saying a word. Wang Da walked out of the door and looked back at the red building. A building like this will support people like this. The gold-encrusted beast. Wang Da is too rough. 12th. Wang Da ran back to Li Ying's aunt's house from Treasury Street. Li Ying's uncle runs a small shop and is not at home often. "My aunt is also going out today." Wang Dijin entered the courtyard and walked dejectedly to the small house where he and Li Ying lived. "Wang Da. You came back early. How is the matter?" Li Ying's sister asked through the window. "Aunt is not at home?" "No, come in and tell me your story. Come in and see how hot it is in the courtyard." Wang Ditsai felt that his face was covered with sweat, and while wiping it, he walked into the upper room. "Sister Jing. Do you believe uncle?" Wang Da seemed to have dissipated his anger and became concerned about others again. "Sit down, uncle has a letter asking about Li Ying." At the end of the letter, Lao Zhang had no intention of granting Mrs. Zhang's freedom. Wang Da, Li Ying and Li Jing, Li Ying's sister, grew up together and saw each other every day when they were young. Li Jing has been living in the city since her uncle's career was not going well. Her aunt's house. She went to school during the day and helped her aunt with housework at night. Now she has graduated and no longer wants to go to school. She is 2 years older than Li Ying, but judging from her appearance, she is the younger sister and he is the older brother. She has 2 gentle eyebrows and a round face. Her 2 eyes are exceptionally bright and moist, showing her calmness and elegance. When she was a child, she loved Wang De more than she loved Li Ying. She loved Wang De's naughtiness, his humor, his smile, his dimples, and his dark, sparkling eyes. Wang De's love for her comes from the environment. There is no other woman in the village who is more beautiful than her, no one who loves and protects him as much as she does, and no one who has read more books than her. When they were young, she told him jokes. He rolled his eyes and adapted her jokes again and told them to her, but sometimes they were completely wrong. They don't see each other a few times a day, they don't really see each other a day, but they see each other a few times in dreams. When they can't see you. Like digging out their hearts and throwing them into the desert, where they are blown by strong winds, beaten by flying sand, and scorched by the hot sun, their hearts are broken, burnt, and turned into ashes. When they saw it, they were comforted and happy, and their hearts were sewn together with love. They were still as affectionate as when they were young, but they unconsciously had something more in their hearts, some more unspeakable emotions. When they were little, they cried when they couldn't see each other, crying really comforted them. Now they can't see him. They sit blankly, thinking dully. They would rather kill themselves than be isolated. They don't know why, just like a yellow butterfly chasing a white butterfly. Their love continues to increase with age. When they were lonely, they had a little bit of starlight and a little vitality, covering each other and stirring. Their deep inner fragrance spans 3,000 worlds. It seems that they can finally be connected and float in the sea of love. When they meet, they talk and laugh without shame. When they meet, they think about each other without shame, so much so that they are willing to sit together, live together, and die together without shame. Sister Jing. Do you know Mrs. Zhang's history? One thing, I don't know the current situation. You and dash. Wang De, what kind of joke are you going to make? The joke is all gone today, you and the old. What is the old man, Wang De? Sister Jing, do you have any new novels? Can you lend me a copy? You tell me what you want to say. I tell you, are you going to cry? I won't cry, come on, Wang De, tell me. Lao Zhang wants it, Wang De said. He heard the street door ring, and his aunt came in with big bags and small cans in her hands. The 2 people rushed out. After taking the thing in her hand, her aunt glanced at Wang De and said nothing. Wang De put the things on the table and went to his hut with a blushing face. Li Jing's aunt is in her 60s and is still in good health. Her face, figure, clothes. That's no more novel than others. Put her among ordinary Chinese women, so that you can't tell which one is her and which one is someone else. You can describe her with everything about ordinary Chinese women, or you can use her to represent them. She really loves Li Ying and Li Jing, and she is really responsible for taking care of Li Ying and her brother, Li Ying's uncle. She is also really responsible for the Li family ancestors, not only for the family, but also for all social morals and family disciplines. She has a very upright and self-respecting and responsible attitude. She is a good woman, a good Chinese woman. Girl. You are not a child of 7 or 8 years old. You should be cautious in everything. Do you understand what I say? And, you probably don't want me to talk to Wang De? Wang De is like my brother, and I love him as much as I love Li Ying. Girl. Girl. I have lived for almost 60 years, and I have never seen a woman love a man without evil intentions. Girl, you are so brave, dare to say you love him. And, what are you afraid of when you say love? Li Jing asked with a smile. Girl, you want to talk back to me today, okay? So Jinger. My old lady won't allow you to talk. What can you say if you don't understand the word love? Don't think I haven't studied. Come on, aunt, let's not talk anymore, is that okay? Li Jing stepped forward and took her aunt's hand. She was shaking it up and down to please her aunt. Ah. Good boy. Don't say that again from now on. Go and make a pot of tea, I will buy you good things to eat. The good woman was relieved and happily put all the fruit snacks she bought on the plate. Li Jing made the tea and Li Ying came back. The aunt called Wang De over and distributed the snacks and fruits to everyone. She only wanted a rotten peach and a crushed piece of pastry. Aunt, I can't eat so much, so I'll give you some. Li Ying saw that her aunt's snacks were too little, so she handed her his own plate. No. Li Ying. My aunt is wholeheartedly willing to watch you eat. As long as you have fat heads and big ears, you are my creation. Amitabha. Buddha bless you. If I have money, besides offering incense to the Buddha, I will also buy you food. A good woman doesn't lie, she really does this. Li Ying, how is your matter? Li Jing deliberately avoided Wang Dada. I have some clues. When my uncle comes back, I will discuss it with him. You saw him? Aunt asked. Yes. My uncle will come back for dinner in the evening. Li Ying. Go get a drink. Your uncle has no other hobby except drinking a glass of pickle wine. Good boy, go. Li Yingkai came back and told him to rest for a while I went to get a drink. Wangda said to the good woman. Good Wangda, you go, you go. The good woman quickly and slowly took out the hot and shiny copper coins one by one from her foot-long pocket. Do you know that hotel? Go out of this street to the south. Not far away, on the east side of the road, there are 5 gold gourds hanging. They cost 5 coppers, 1 tael and 2 taels. Hold the bottle straight, don't worry about it swinging out. You don't have to when you go out. Do you understand? Go quickly. Good boy. Return. The pork shop across from the hotel has pig ears, so I picked a thick one and bought one. He just loves to eat crunchy soy ears, right? I'm not worried. Your young service is unreliable. Give me the bottle, or I'll go. The last time Li Ying bought mutton, the blade was blunt and the meat was not cut. I'd better go by myself. I will buy it. I'm an expert at buying sauced ears. Wangda wanted to laugh but was embarrassed. He secretly glanced at Li Jing again. I remembered. The good woman really thought for a while. You two don't need to go out to eat. How about eating with your uncle? Wangda did not dare to answer first, but Li Ying suggested using their money to buy more vegetables. Everyone had a great time. The aunt agreed and asked Li Ying and Wangda to go shopping and drink together. Because businessmen specialize in bullying men, 2 people with 4 eyes can be less likely to be deceived. Then he gave the 2 teenagers a lesson before letting them go. Li Jing helped her aunt prepare everything in the kitchen. Li Jing handed her the spoon, and her aunt asked for the ladle. Li Jing took the plate, and her aunt asked for the oil bottle. So Li Jing followed her aunt around the house. Didn't do anything right. 13th. Wangda, Li should come back from shopping for groceries. My aunt was criticizing and cooking. He was so critical that he mistook vinegar for soy sauce and poured a full spoonful into the cooking pot. Suddenly he realized his mistake, so he stopped criticizing and sat on a small stool laughing until tears rolled down his cheeks. Li Ying's uncle is back. Zhao Rui is his name. He is about 50 years old, and his wife has always been more than 10 years older than him since he got married. He is short in stature and looks more impressive horizontally than vertically, like a small square meat mound. The short neck supports a round and fleshy earth-shaped head. 2 smiling eyes and a red rosacea nose. When he sees someone, he first nods and smiles, and then says hard work. The more he looks at him, the more he looks like an experienced trader. When Uncle Zhao entered the room, he first said hello to everyone, and then poured tea for everyone, leaving Wangda at a loss. If Wangda is in Uncle Zhao's shop, he still has a way. He can at least buy some goods from Uncle Zhao to repay his kindness. Aunt Zhao didn't wait for anyone to say anything, but first told her husband that she had mistaken vinegar for soy sauce. After hearing this, Uncle Zhao also burst into tears with laughter, and a big piece of his red nose was covered in tears. After laughing for a while, the old couple led the 3 young people to enjoy their dinner. Uncle Zhao handed over rice and vegetables, forcing Wangda and Li Ying to drink some wine and taste some pig ears. 2 liang of wine for 3 people to drink. From an ideal and practical point of view, Uncle Zhao would not drink more than 2 liang or even 2 liang at all. However, I was a little drunk. Beads of sweat like pearls dripped down into the rice bowl along the temples. The face was full of smiles, like a red sun, gradually extinguishing the red nose in a red light. It's like a volcano that has erupted and is hidden in the red clouds and red clouds. After having enough wine and food, Uncle Zhao put on a bag of Guangdong cigarettes and asked Li Ying to move the chairs to the courtyard, where everyone sat around. Aunt Zhao was busy clearing away the cups and plates, and did not allow Li Jing to help. So Li Jing made a pot of tea and sat next to his uncle. Uncle, can you help me solve what I told you? Li Ying asked. Okay. I just like to hear young people want to do things. I have no objection to studying, but doing things is also important. If you want to become a nerd while studying, you might as well eat a few more crunchy pig ears. Uncle Zhao puffed out the blue smoke from his mouth, which gradually rose up and merged with the light blue sky. We don't accept those of you studying as apprentices in the shop, and we don't want students to be workers in the factory. Not a good credential? If you go to be a patrol officer, to be honest, it's not a very good business. As for what you mean by the 9 soldiers army, I still don't quite understand. The Salvation Army. Li Ying replied. Yes. Salvation Army. What's going on? I went out this morning and met my old neighbor Zhao Si on the street. He works part-time as a truck driver and part-time worker in the Salvation Army. He said that the Salvation Army takes in many young people and does not make much money, but it does charity work. So I ran to the Salvation Army church. After listening to some religious lectures, it makes sense. What are they talking about? Wang De interrupted and asked. They say that everyone is guilty, and there is only one God who can forgive us, if we can trust him to do good things. I thought we were making some money. If you don't do something good for society, your life will be in vain. So, Li Ying, where does this God live? Wang De asked. Heaven. Li Ying answered solemnly. It's the Buddha who is in heaven. Uncle Zhao half closed his eyes, holding his pipe in his mouth, as if he was about to fall asleep. But, Inger, I was a little worried about going to Xinyang to teach. I think as long as there is a group and everyone works together to do good things, I am willing to join, regardless of whether it is a foreign religion or not. Li Ying said. You must know that they do good things? Li Jing asked. If you don't believe me, go and see. The church is neat and solemn. There is another spirit. I am a businessman, and I can only say 3 things about my profession. How much money can you take? Take it from the church. Zhao Si said 5 yuan a month, but my purpose is to do some good things, and I don't care how much money I make. Good. You go try it first, it doesn't work. Let's find something else to do. After Uncle Zhao finished speaking to Li Ying, he then turned to Wang De and said, What's your matter? If you let me curse, I will say it. Wang De thought of the golden-crusted humanoid beast. Don't curse, your sister is sitting here. Without her, I don't care what you curse. If you do this, you may curse in your heart and say it with your mouth. Wang De then told what happened during the day. Then he expressed his will. Look, Wang De said to Uncle Zhao, is it okay if I enter the school? Things are too hard to find. And am not willing to do small things. It's nice to study, but there is one thing. Can your father provide it for you? Your sister, Uncle Zhao pointed at Li Jing and said, has been studying for 5 or 6 years. Today she buys leather shoes and tomorrow she buys a white hat. She doesn't spend much money on books. Bits and pieces almost bankrupted me, for God's sake. I don't understand new things, so I can't figure out how I can recognize words as soon as I put on leather shoes. You know your family finances better than I do. If you don't have money, you don't have to think about studying. There is nothing better than finding something to do. Girl, don't worry too much, I don't mean to say you spent my money, I don't care about money. Good girl, pour me another bowl of tea for my uncle. Uncle Zhao drank enough tea and put his pipe in his waist. He said toward the room, I said, I want to go back to the shop. If the children have anything to say to me, ask them to come to the shop to find me. I said, Aunt Zhao in the room answered, and then walked out with the unfinished plate. Is today's food good? Good. It's just a little sour. Are you sour? Save soy sauce. Soy sauce is much more expensive than vinegar. The old couple burst into laughter, and Uncle Zhao said to Li Jing again. Thank you, girl, for cooking and serving tea. Wait for your uncle to come and talk to you about being an old lady. Don't talk nonsense, uncle. Li Jing lightly hit her uncle. Good girl, hit me. Wait until I tell your mother-in-law. Uncle Zhao walked out with a smile, and his aunt followed him asking questions. Li Ying and others were still sitting in the courtyard. It had been about 4 or 5 minutes since Uncle Zhao walked out, and he could still hear his loud and thick smile. Sound. 14th. On the 2nd day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, Lao Zhang didn't wake up until noon. Because yesterday I collected the festival gifts, settled the shop's accounts, and collected the debts owed to the customers, it was not until the 4th watch that I tightened my belt and went to bed fully clothed. The bright moon like foreign money reflects the golden buildings and jade buildings in the sky. Copper Cave and Silver Mountain, there is another fairy world in Lao Zhang's dream. The common people raise their glasses to the moon and sing to the wine. Compared with Lao Zhang's dream, what the common people enjoy is material, while what Lao Zhang enjoys is spiritual. What a world of difference. Due to the serious warning from his stomach, Lao Zhang could no longer sleep, although he tried to close his eyes several times. He got up and rubbed his eyes, trying to calm down Lao Du's rebellion. Why eat well during the season, he thought, no reason. Why is it necessary to eat? Why not eat some grass and drink some water like cows and horses? No reason. Fortunately, Lao Zhang didn't think too much. Otherwise, if he created the theory of degeneration, people would have degenerated into cattle and horses eating grass. Yes. Go find Sun Ba. Once we praised his food, he would ask us to try some. As soon as we taste some, we will taste some more, and we will get rid of it. Right. Lao Zhang raised his shoulders, took a mouthful of cold water and rinsed his mouth, and walked through Sun Ba's house. Is Master Ba up? What a joke, what time is it? Why don't you get up yet, Mr. Zhang? Thank you for your hard work, come in and sit down. I just got up. What, drank too much wine again? Do you have time to drink? Paying bills and collecting debts will make people busy. There is nothing we can do, who said we are the spirits of all things controlled by money. Mr. Zhang, I have real lotus white sent by a friend. Let's have a drink. No. I have to treat you today. Lao Zhang said boldly. Ready-made food and wine, no trouble. After Sun Ba finished speaking, Lao Zhang winked and smiled, and said in his heart, I never thought it would be so easy for Lao's son to get food. The food and wine are set. Lao Zhang looked very affectionate, just like a camel in the desert storing water, and planned to eat it for a week. Sun Ba sees that the more customers eat, the more he likes it. The unfortunate guest's stomach cracked like an autumn melon and he died. Sun Ba was particularly happy to buy coffins for his guests. 8th Master. Is our meeting scheduled for the day after tomorrow? Lao Zhang said as he ate, and was busy picking up the meat residue that spewed out from the table into his mouth. Probably. Who do you think should be the president? Doesn't it all depend on everyone's election? Sun Bei has been influenced by the autonomous community in the past 2 or 3 months, and sometimes he uses new words and phrases very appropriately. Who said that? The self-governing association is run by us, the members are appointed by us, and whoever we ask to be the president can be the president. Said. Lao Zhang picked up another piece of fat meat and put it in his mouth. Yes. Yes. Who do you think should be the president? Wait a minute, does Mr. Ba still have wine? I still owe you a cup. After drinking the wine, please ask my sister-in-law to make us 3 bowls of hot rice, which are hot, sour, and spicy. Let's finish eating in one sitting and then talk about the meeting, okay? Good. Sun Ba went to the kitchen and asked him to make hot rice. After finishing 3 bowls of hot rice, Lao Zhang added 3 steamed buns and a few mid-autumn moon cakes, then he touched his belly and said something he couldn't help but say, I'm full. Then try to hold your belly up, stand up, and walk slowly in the house. The base of my tongue couldn't hold down my esophagus, and the contents of my stomach were pushing up. Bei. Do you have any benevolence pills? Give me a few. New habits. You must take Rindan after meals. Lao Zhang smiled with his mouth closed to prevent the esophagus from flooding. Sun Ba gave Lao Zhang a few benevolent pills. Lao Zhang ate them and tried to sit on the chair again. Xiaoxi. Little 4. Sun Ba shouted. Coming. What are you calling me for? I'm having a great time with my mistress. Go tell your mother to make tea quickly. Xiaoxi glanced at Lao Zhang and secretly whispered into his father's ear, the teacher doesn't drink tea because he's afraid of hurting his stomach. Sun Ba smiled. Xiaoxi looked back at Lao Zhang, fearing that Lao Zhang could see his secret. He quickly said to Lao Zhang, Teacher, I didn't tell my dad that you don't drink tea. Good boy, you let it slip. I won't drink bad tea. Your father's tea is so fragrant, how can I not drink it? Go quickly, good boy. Sun Ba was satisfied, and Xiaoxi jumped to the kitchen with one leg. 8th Master. According to my opinion, Uncle Ling, our old man, should be appointed as the president. My uncle really has no intention of doing this. Besides, people in the club don't like old people. Master Ba, listen, I have a reason. Who is the important person in the meeting now? Naturally, it is Nan Feisheng, Nagarjuna, and you and me. We have similar reputations and abilities. If we get into a fight, the meeting will break up. It doesn't matter if the meeting is broken up. What matters is that if the government immediately implements self-government, we will have nothing to rely on. Isn't it too late for a young lady to get on the sedan and have her ears and eyes pierced? So now, firstly, we need to avoid competition among the few of us, and secondly, we need to keep the president in our hands without competing. This is what I advocate for Uncle Ling, our old man. Reason. What's the reason? Sun Ba asked. My Ba Yi. It's not obvious yet. You see, you are a local gentleman and your uncle is an old gentleman. In terms of status, property, and reputation, it seems that this president must also fall into the Sun family. If someone else carries him away. Not only is it a shame for your Sun family, but it is also a shame for our dishing Sun family. However, you, a gentleman, cannot defeat our old gentleman. President of your sports club, the non-face students can object. We have to carry it out for our elderly people. Keep them speechless. The old man naturally doesn't want to do things, so it's just right to let the old man bear the name, and you and I will handle everything secretly. You understand, I don't mean to play tricks on us old people. One sentence to the end. We cannot ask outsiders to take away the president. Yes. That is. The more you say it, the more correct it becomes. Sun Bali stood up and shouted out the window, Xiaosang's mother. Change the tea leaves and make tea. Li Shandong and you are naturally not willing to support the elderly, Lao Zhang continued, Nagar Shigu. I went to tell him that he did not dare to disobey us. There was only one Nan Feishing left, so he couldn't sing with his palms alone and stared blankly. As for the staff, give the chief of the investigation unit to Lao Long, and give the documents to Nan Feishing. The accountant is mine, because you can have your uncle be the president and your nephew be the accountant. You come to socialize. I'm in charge of the money, and you go and socialize. In the future, whoever has the most connections will take advantage. That is. Where is Li Shandong? He is general affairs. The shopkeeper's job as a general servant is called getting what you want. But if we think this way, can members follow suit? Ba Yi. You are so honest. Honest people are really not suitable for doing civilized things. Aren't the members invited by you and me to support you? If you use money to buy snacks for them, can they disobey your orders? Good. Just do it. Mr. Zhang, tell them how hard you have worked. Nature. Losing some car money is nothing. Lao Zhang patted his belly, firstly, to shock his stomach, and secondly, to show his generosity and enthusiasm. It's my business to pay for the car. I am the president of my uncle, and I ask you to pay for it. There is no such thing in the world. Little things. I don't care. Lao Zhang said, holding his belly and standing up. Wait a minute, it's still early, I'll get you the car payment. No. Lao Zhang shook his head and walked out with his hands. Sun Ba stopped Lao Zhang with one hand and took out $2 from his pocket with the other hand. Lao Zhang won't accept the money. Just listen to Sun Ba put the money into his pocket. With a bang, the $2 seemed to sink deep into his pocket, and he kept saying, well, there's such a thing. Then he sat down again with his belly in his hands. The two talked about some things about the Autonomous Association. Sun Ba planned to buy a house in the city if his uncle became president of the association so that he could socialize widely. Lao Zhang succeeded in self-governance. He left his school to others, lived on the interest money, and devoted himself to politics. The two of them were beaming with joy. Compliment each other. Seriously, Mr. Ba, there is no way to be an official in any business. You can only get a little bad money from business. Money that is small and obtained by hard work is called bad money. See Chapter 1 of Lao Zhang's Economic Principles, Chapter 23. Become an official and gain both fame and fortune. If a businessman has money and wants to marry a mistress, some may look down upon him. But once a man becomes an official and does not marry a concubine, no one will think highly of him. They both have money, but their status is much different. That is. Look for something to say, Master Ba. Do you want to have a concubine or not? Lao Zhang's main goal was to bypass the Hetao and reach the mouth of the Bohai Sea. I have no intention of having a concubine, really. Sun Ba said sincerely. Ba Yi. You have to think about your status. You are a gentleman now, and you will be an adult once self-government is achieved. How many adults do not take concubines? Let me ask you. If a military attaché becomes a battalion commander and does not marry a child, can his superiors have contact with him? If a civil servant becomes a governor and does not marry a child, will anyone promote him? 8th Master. You want to go into politics, so don't follow the crowd, okay? Lao Zhang was so passionate and generous that he almost bit his middle finger and wrote a bloody letter. Your 8th sister-in-law gave birth to a son and a daughter for me. If I want to marry another one, wouldn't I be sorry for her? Having a concubine is not against the 8th sister-in-law. Lao Zhang moved the chair closer to Sun Ba, and the two pig eyes squeezed into a slit. He said in a low voice and eagerly, you want to enter politics. If a wealthy person from the political circle comes to the house to see how the 8th sister-in-law looks like, will you be able to use it? Do you really want to show the 8th sister-in-law and not show her front teeth? It's funny to laugh. That's true. My 8th sister-in-law and I have no bad feelings at all. You heard me clearly. Besides, now is the time when women are cheap. You should choose the old-fashioned, reformed, big-footed, or bound-footed ones. They are not expensive at all. We who are in our 40s do not enjoy such a little blessing. Wait until the 7th and 8th graders lose their teeth. Moreover, marrying a concubine is the first priority for entering politics, so it would be great to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. As for property, you are the god of wealth and I am the land. I also want to taste the flavor of a little wife. Besides, you are such a big gentleman. Future adults. 8th master. If you think about it carefully, if you don't listen to what I say, just put your fist on Lao Zhang's mouth. How dare you? How dare? What you said makes sense. It makes sense. Why don't I advise you to go whore? In fact, prostitution is also something people do. Because there is danger. Buying a girl for yourself, who is comfortable, clean, and valued by others, has only advantages and no harm. Master Ba, think about it. If you are interested, I, Lao Zhang, will not waste any money and I will find you someone you like. Sun Ba did not answer. You figure it out for yourself, I have to go to town. Lao Zhang stood up, thanked Sun Ba for the meal, and walked out. Sun Ba saw him out of the door. Xiao San and Xiao Si were playing under the tree outside the door. When they saw Lao Zhang coming out, Xiao Si asked. School is over tomorrow. Don't let go, teacher. 3 days in a row wasn't enough? Lao Zhang said with a smile. He is really like a kind teacher. What a good teacher. Eat our food and don't let us go to school. Wait until I tell my mother that I will never cook for you again. Your father gave it to me. My father? Tell my mom to spank him. Nonsense. Little 4. Sun Ba lightly slapped Xiao Si. Your mother is domineering. Lao Zhang glanced at Sun Ba. Not overbearing, like Mrs. Zhang. Good luck. Xiao Si is never afraid of Lao Zhang. Xiao Si. Come on. Look at this big spider. How many legs are there? Yo. Really, mistress? Xiao Si ran to the root of the wall. Lao Zhang took the opportunity to escape. 15th. Lao Zhang wanted to write a letter to Nagashugu and tell him about the election plan. Then just think about it, except for the election. There is also the matter of interviewing Nagarjuna. And if you walk into town instead of taking a car, you can save at least 3 cents on stamps compared to writing a letter. So he decided to take a short trip. Nagarjuna lived in Old Gula Street, and Lao Zhang's route was to get closer to Dishengmen. But he had eaten too much for breakfast, and he was thirsty on the way and had nowhere to go to find tea. It would be better to follow the city routes eastward and enter Andingmen. When I was thirsty, there was plenty of water from the moat. It would be inconvenient to pick up 2 handfuls, so I decided to take this route. Ancient and strong city walls. There are small trees with short and thick branches. Some are hung with half-red tiger-eye dates, swinging in the wind, attracting wild birds to fly up and down to peck at them. The wide dirt road under the city wall is marked with car marks more than half a foot deep. Against the wall, golden chrysanthemums are still blooming. It is even more quiet and profound. A few white ducks floated in the clear and shallow water of the moat, washing their feet until they were bright yellow, creating circles of golden light on the water. Lao Zhang drank water when he was thirsty and sat under the willow tree to rest for a while. Autumn scenery before my eyes. It seems that if it is reflected in an image box with no light, no impression will be produced. He couldn't help but look into the water. The little fish moved the water up and down into small circles. He always thought that someone was throwing copper coins from the city wall into the river. The water in the river was beaten in circles. With Lao Zhang's cleverness, he soon understood that it was a game played by little fishes. Although, he still looked back many times. Lao Zhang followed the drink and entered the Anding Gate. Then follow the city route and walk towards Old Drum Tower Street. Nagarjuna's house faces east and west. It has a small red painted door with a black center and gold letters. On the left is, God says good things, and on the right is, Jesus keeps you safe. A small sign on the left door frame reads, The Salvation Army Dragon. Nagarjuna happened to be at home. Let Lao Zhang go to the upper room. Lao Zhang explained everything about the election, but Nagarjuna didn't say anything as acquiescence. After talking about the election, Lao Zhang mentioned Long Shugu's debt, but Officer Long just responded perfunctorily, saying that he would pay it back soon, but there was no set date. Although Lao Zhang was anxious, Nagarjuna's support, which was neither humble nor overbearing, prevented Lao Zhang from getting angry. Suddenly there was a soft sound of broken leather shoes in the courtyard. Long Feng, Officer Long's daughter, followed several girlfriends in and saw Lao Zhang in the upper room. They all went to the east room to joke. Girls still go to school? Lao Zhang sent them to the east room with his eyes, those little pig eyes, and asked. Now that I have graduated, you can help me with some work in the church. Okay. Girls can make money too, so you, surnamed Long, are capable. That all depends on God's blessing. If I had such a good daughter, Lao Zhang, could have enough food and clothing for the rest of my life. Unfortunately, I don't have that blessing. Lao Zhang said miserably. I don't understand what you mean. It's not difficult to understand. People who are now officials. You don't want to marry a female student. With the girl's abilities and appearance, why not worry about marrying a rich man? Do you still have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life? We religious people cannot sell our daughters to seek our own wealth. Nagarjuna's solemn face represents the dignity of God. Old dragon. You can't just think in one direction. When it comes to religion, I know no less than you do. Your current situation is much better than it was 3 or 4 years ago. Why? God's grace. Why do you have such a good daughter? God's grace. God gave it to you. You have the power to dominate. If God gives you money, you can spend it as you like. Why can't you give the daughter God gave you to someone else's family so that you can enjoy some blessings yourself? Belief in Buddhism and Jesus is the same thing, but it is just about seeking some blessings in this world. Do you think the religious principles I mentioned are true? Nagashugu didn't answer, and Lao Zhang looked at Lao Long's face quietly. Your debt can never be repaid. It's not that you can't repay it, it's that you are unwilling to repay it. Lao Zhang stabbed Lao Long again. What? Look, there is such a good girl. If you tell her about her husband's family, she will get at least 1,000 yuan as a gift, and the debt can be paid off. Isn't this a way to survive by paying off the debt and then using the girl's power to give you a full-time official position? Besides, accepting a bride price is a recognized thing. It does not mean selling your daughter. If you are willing to keep the bread and starve, there is nothing I can do. Nagarjuna hasn't spoken yet. Lao Zhang stood up and walked around the house with his hands behind his back. Sometimes he approached the door and window and looked into Miss Long's room. You also have to think about it for me. Who can bear to put a bald-tailed eagle on a large piece of silver cake? Think about it, let's see you another day. If you are willing to follow my ideas, I will not charge you any money and I am willing to help. After Lao Zhang finished speaking, he opened the door and walked out, then looked at the east room. Nagarjuna only said goodbye. Lao Zhang was not sent out. Lao Zhang walked away, smiled to himself, and said to himself, 80% again, good. He was extremely happy, so he ran to Dongqing to see Nan Feisheng. In order to secretly see what Nan Feisheng's actions are regarding the election of the Autonomous Association. When I met Nan Feisheng didn't say a word about the meeting, and Lao Zhang didn't ask any questions. Fortunately, Nan Feisheng stayed with Lao Zhang for dinner, and Lao Zhang ate another, rain millet from the sky, and ghosts crying at night. After finishing the meal, he hurriedly said goodbye, holding his round belly in his hands, and squeezed out of Anding Gate with 3 sighs. 16th. Lao Zhang ran around and exercised, and the results were quite good. He went to Sun Ba's office to report his merits and reward him. Sun Ba gave him another $2. The two of them drafted a meeting notice and held a meeting at Erlang Temple. Heroes from inside and outside the city gathered, and Nan Feisheng was the chairman. He read the constitution first, and the audience applauded in approval, and it was passed without any trouble. Attention! One of the articles is, the staff of each department shall be appointed by the president. The constitution was adopted, followed by a free vote. Members asked each other, who should I write about? Can I write about myself? They argued for a long time, but no correct decision was made, so everyone wrote at will. Some only drew a 10, some wrote their names, and printed a mark of struggle underneath. It was chaotic for more than half an hour. Everyone was so exhausted that they wrote the tickets. Broken. There was no place to put it, and the deacons forgot to prepare the tickets. Some people advocate that everyone reads their own votes and the secretary writes them on the blackboard. Some people advocate that no matter who takes off a sock. Stuffing the ticket in, finally Nagarjuna suggested using his hardtop suitcase as a ticket carrier. The crowd agreed, threw their votes into the box like snowflakes, and dispersed. Only a dozen people were waiting to see the election results. Nan Feisheng read the tickets, and Lao Zhang remembered the numbers. Suanba and Nagarjuna were watching from the left and right. After reading the ticket, Nan, Sun, and Zhang Quan took a breath and stared. It turned out that Long Shugu was elected as the president. Lao Zhang poured all his blood into his face, and Sun Ba poured all his blood down. One looks like a drunk Guan Gong, and the other looks like a sick mouse. They looked at each other speechless. Nan Feixing didn't show his expression, but his hands were trembling slightly. Nagarjuna chatted calmly with other members, as if he hadn't seen the election results. This election cannot be valid. Lao Zhang said to the crowd, the number of votes is more than the number of people present. Moreover, the box used was Lao Long's, which obviously had some drawbacks. That is. Sun Ba yelled. How come the votes don't match up? A person in the audience said, since there is no sign-in book at the entrance, there is no way to prove the number of people attending the meeting. Now the membership is almost gone. Of course there are more votes than there are now. As for whether Piao Gua has any shortcomings, considering Long Jun's personality, it seems that he shouldn't be so slanderous. Moreover, there was a lack of inspection beforehand and fabrication of facts afterwards. This is a deliberate attempt to cause trouble and undermine autonomy. A dull thunder beat Lao Zhang into silence. I've been fooled. What should I do? Sun Ba pulled Lao Zhang aside and asked. Contact Nan Feixing and join us to oppose Lao Long. Lao Zhang gave Nan Feixing a wink, and Nan Feixing walked off the stage. What should we do? Mr. Nan. Mr. Nan. Lao Zhang asked. Why didn't you unite with me beforehand? Now that the matter has come to this, I can't help it. Nan Feixing shook his head like a windmill. You have to work hard. Sun Ba said. I have only one way. I listen to you, Mr. Nan. Sun Ba was really anxious. We are now forcing him to designate staff, Nan Feixing said still calmly. If he gives us all the important staff, we have contacted him and will embarrass him in everything. Within a month or two, he will be squeezed out. If he doesn't give us important staff. We immediately electrified the whole country and vowed to oppose it to the death. That is. Mr. Nan, go and talk to him. Suan Ba is really a good man. The more anxious a good man is, the less likely he is to have any ideas. Before Nan Feixing could reach Nagarjuna, he only heard one of the members say. Please come on stage and take office. Nagarjuna slowly stood up and walked towards the stage, but Nan Feixing stopped him. The accountant is yours. Nagarjuna whispered to Nan Feixing. Nan Feixing nodded and moved out of the way of the president. The president came on stage and said a few humble words. Then appoint staff. Mr. Nan Feixing, accountant. Lao Zhang had a Cold War. Mr. Sun Ding, communication. Hard work. Sun Ba said to himself. Mr. Zhang Mingda, general affairs officer. Lao Zhang had another half-cold and half-hot Cold War. Mr. Li Futsai, investigate, comma. The audience applauded. Nagar Shugu said a few more words about the facilities for future conference affairs, and then announced the adjournment of the conference. President Long came down and shook hands with Sun Ba and others one by one, all of them had cold palms. Then he went into the city with Nan Feixing. Sun Ba was so angry that he wanted to cry. Li Shandong was very hungry, so he said goodbye and went back to the shop to eat. Okay. I've been hunting geese all my life, and today they pecked their eyes. Why don't Lao Zhang let you, surnamed Long, taste our unique fatal pills, and we'll change the family tree to not have the surname Zhang. That is. Mr. Zhang, how hard you have worked. Ba Yi. Do you really want to argue with this? I want. Good. Find a small restaurant to have something to eat first. Lao Zhang has an idea. Lao Zhang showed a very heroic spirit, pushing his legs against his buttocks against his spine, and his spine against his neck. He put his head on his neck and straightened himself up. I heard that in the theory of evolution, people changed from four-legged animals to two-legged animals, and this is how they stood up. The two of them found a small restaurant in Dishengmen Pass. Lao Zhang filled his chest with anger, expanded the capacity of his stomach, and ate more and more courageously, until his canthus of the eye was all split, and he was furious. Master Ba. Do you really want to live up to your expectations? It's absolutely true. Okay. You don't object to my plan? Say. I am Ba Yi. First of all, do you want to take a concubine or not? Ba Yi. You pay the meal bill, see you another day. Lao Zhang stood up and left. What are you talking about? Sit down. Look, the first thing you do is give me a boring gourd. That is to say, for one day, isn't it just a hang-up matchmaking and a lot of talk in vain? Sit down and marry. Marry. That's how it should be. Lao Zhang sat down again. Listen, Nagarjuna has a daughter who really makes the willow tree bloom with red flowers and becomes more beautiful. As for him, his debt is bigger than the cannon hole now, and he relies on her to get some betrothal gifts to make up for the shortfall. I will go and give him some gifts. You bought her over and you heard her clearly. He is not in my debt. Buying his daughter as a concubine will not ruin him to the end. If you want to do something, just do it. If you don't want to do it, put your tail between your legs and kowtow to Officer Long and President Long. No one can say that Mr. Ba is unkind. Old Zhang, you underestimate me too much. Do. How hard you work. No need to rush. Lao Zhang first gave the hot medicine and then the coolant to make the patient feel more sick. There is absolutely no danger here. His debts must be repaid, so it is appropriate for us to pay for his daughter. The money passed by this hand, the handwritten receipt, there will never be any mistakes. Sun Ba just nodded and did not reply. Eighth Master. You know how to take care of the meal. Just wait for the good news at home. The marriage is done, and I'm just waiting for your wedding wine. Roll up your face, happy. Happy. Sun Ba is really happy. 17th. A Muslim. You don't feel as suspicious when eating bananas as you do when eating pork. Why? It would be too funny to simply reply, eating mutton instead of pork is like eating bananas instead of fish oil candles. I have no choice but to ask this question to a mild-tempered Muslim. Ordinary people will only answer with, this is delicious, and, that is not delicious, which will never be accurate. Similarly, why did Nagarjuna believe in Christianity? All I can say is, belief in religion is people's freedom. I have no choice but to ask you to ask Nagarjuna. If you have to ask in depth, I have to provide you with some deeds about Nagarjuna, or you can learn from these deeds. Find a conclusion. Nagarjuna's parents were a couple who only gambled on money but not on fighting spirit. They lay in the coffin with infinite shame, having never lived up to the auspicious words that people gave them when they got married, to grow old together. Although they gambled away all their money, they still had great hopes because they had a good son. Nagarjuna could say what his parents wanted to say and do what his parents wanted to do since he was a child. Elder Long carries Nagarjuna on his back and people often say, if you have a son who is not as filial as Shugu, it is like being like a mule before a camel, what a weird thing. Old man Long believed exclusively in Erlang God, because Erlang God had 3 eyes, one of which was responsible for monitoring the casino and blessing devout gamblers. Mrs. Long believed exclusively in the city god. When Nagarjuna was a child, he used to be a child prodigy and read in front of the sedan chair with his mother when the city god went on patrol. In short, Nagarjuna has been deeply influenced by religion since his childhood. When he was 18 years old, his parents brought the eldest daughter Luo Laosi from Dongsheng to her. She was brought to him as his wife in a colorfully embroidered sedan. The eldest girl was only 7 or 8 years older than him, and she really loved him like an old sister. Sometimes the old couple was not at home, and the young couple also had a few fights, but fighting never hurts love, and they kept fighting. She actually dedicated herself to him as a white and fat little girl, Longfeng. The day after Longfeng was born, a Taoist priest told her fortune. The Taoist priest said, she must become a nun, otherwise she will harm her relatives. Mr. and Mrs. Long love their granddaughter very much. I can't bear to do what the Taoist said. Sure enough, Longfeng killed all his grandparents when he was less than 3 years old. To this day, when neighbors see Long in Phoenix, they still feel sorry for Mr. Long and his wife. Nagarjuna has been active in society since his parents passed away. Unfortunately for his society, his government allowed horse thieves to be generals and gamblers to be chief ministers, but it did not give the same status to those who were neither thieves nor thieves like Nagarjuna. Even more unfortunately, his wife also died and Longfeng was 8 or 9 years old. Her death, according to the doctor, it was caused by a lack of water and fire, and liver qi invaded the lungs. According to neighbors, it was the dragon and the phoenix who defeated the 10 tribes. Otherwise, why would doctors not prescribe medicine to attack the liver and nourish the lungs even though they knew it was liver qi invading the lungs? After Nagarjuna lost his wife, he still couldn't find a job. So he joined the Salvation Army Church and was baptized as a believer. When he first became a believer, his neighbors were very dissatisfied with him. When they met Longfeng, they not only ignored her, but also called her foreign girl in private. Later, Nagarjuna became an army officer, and his relatives and friends gradually changed their attitudes. Change Longfeng's foreign girl to female student. Longfeng is now 20 years old. No one can say that she is ugly, but no one can say that she is beautiful. Because her rosy face never wears powder or rouge. Her thick eyebrows are never smeared with black ink, and her long, soft hair is never coated with yellow wax or scented oil. I wonder if there are any beauties in the world who don't use beauty. Plus, her hands don't need to be covered with red sleeves. Her feet don't need to be wrapped in long strips of cloth to look like little winter bamboo shoots. I wonder if there are any beauties with big hands and feet in the world. A mountain girl with a wild tone and no accent. She is a motherless child, let's not imitate her. This is what the neighbors said to their girls by pointing at the dragon and the phoenix. Their father and daughter were very happy. Even though Nagarjuna had great troubles, he immediately beamed with joy when he saw his beloved daughter. As for her, she tried her best to comfort him. Serving him, Nagarjuna does feel more comfortable now than when his wife was alive. I can only collect these things about Officer Long. If anyone thinks it is not detailed, I will have to ask you to visit the Gulu Street area. Those old ladies can give you a wealth of historical materials, including the Taoist priests who told fortunes for dragons and phoenixes, and they can name several of their wives. 18th. Li Yingzhen joined the Salvation Army. Wang De still couldn't find a job. Apart from asking for a few more dollars from his father, he was still full of pride and refused to give in to anything. Li Ying would go out in the morning and come back in the evening. Sometimes he would come back very late when he was in town for a meeting. The time when Wang De comes in and out is not certain. When he heard about Aunt Zhao's going out, he tried to go out later or come back earlier so that he could have a few words with Li Jing. Li Jing persuaded him several times, telling him to go home and help his father manage the land and become an honest farmer. It's no more uncomfortable than working in the city. Wang De used words to support him at first, but then one time he couldn't control his mouth anymore. He said, "Sister Jing, I have two aspirations that I must achieve. First, to do something in the city. Second, to marry you. If anything fails, I will die." Li Jing's face was slightly red and she did not answer. Wang De said these words thousands of times in her dreams, but did not dare to say them to her. Today she said them, and then they came out. Hot and sweaty. It seems that the river that has been blocked for a long time has found an outlet, and everything in my heart cannot stop like the overflowing of the river. Sister Jing. Sister Jing. He stepped forward and took her hand. I love you. Brother. Why are you so stupid? I won't stay, I love you, I love you. Although Wang De was already upset, he still did not forget to use the word love to represent what was in his heart. Let go of my hand, my aunt will be back soon. He didn't let go of her hand, so she didn't refuse and let him hold it, holding it tighter. I'm not afraid of my aunt. I love you. I'll die if you don't promise me. You go out first and come back when my aunt goes out in the afternoon. I want you to promise me now. You promised me not to see each other for 10 years, and I am willing to do so, because I know there is someone in the world who loves me. Explain. Sister Jing. You are so young, brother. Can't I reply to you this afternoon? Auntie will be back soon. Wang De knew his aunt's kindness and severity, and the blood in his heart boiled up and turned into tears in his eyes. Li Jing's eyes were also wet. The two of them wiped away the tears with their clasped hands. I don't know whose hand is wiping whose tears. I love you. Sister. Wang De said, let go of her hand and walked out. When he went out of the street, Aunt Zhao was coming from the east. He originally wanted to go east, but changed to the west, fearing that his aunt would see the red circles under his eyes. Li Jing seemed to have lost something in her hand, and looked at herself blankly in the mirror. Unknowingly, she raised her hand and kissed her. There were his tears on her hand. Aunt Zhao came in, but Li Jing didn't hear her. Jinger. Come and pick up the things. She lazily wiped her eyes with a towel and went out to pick up the things her aunt bought. She didn't know what they were. Girl. Why are you crying again? You're not crying, Aunt. She forced a smile. I know what's going on in your mind, there's no need to hide it from me. I really didn't cry. What happened? I feel a little uncomfortable. He kept sneezing as if he was crying. Yes or no? Your uncle is disobedient and had to give you rotten persimmons yesterday. Look, are you sick? This old, the good woman began to worry. Good boy, go and lie down. Put your stuff here first. What do you want to eat? Auntie will do it for you. By the way, you like tender boiled chicken, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. Aunt, I don't want to eat anything, I just need to lie down and it will be fine. Don't worry about me, I'll buy it. Sun Shandong's shop has big red-skinned fried chicken. Aunt Zhao gestured with her hands, as if the chicken was as big as a teapot. After saying that, she stretched her legs and stretched her fat sleeves like an old swan that could not fly. Li Jing was lying on the bed. I don't know what I'm thinking about, I don't know what I'm crying about, but I'm thinking and crying. Thinking of my deceased parents, my uncle, Li Ying, Wang De. I didn't want to cry for fear of breaking my aunt's heart, but I couldn't stop. Don't want to think about it. However, many figures 1 inch long were spinning in my mind. Forgot Wang De, who are you crying for? Crying for Wang De? But it wasn't just him that I was thinking about. If love has no bitter taste, how can we appreciate the sweetness? If there are no tears in love, where will the laughter come from? Love is mysterious, precious, and necessary. Without it, the world is just a piece of withered grass and a strip of yellow sand. Crying, laughing, and being confused for love is interesting and real. If people don't have the freedom to love, all freedom is fake. People do not have love between the two sexes, and all love is empty. Now Li Jing is crying and appreciates the sweetness of love. Her heart is like a flower about to bloom in the cold weather, willing to release her fragrance, beauty regardless of anything. She is like a solitary goose flying in the dark clouds, looking up and calling with a mournful cry. Her partner. She herself didn't know why she was crying, what she was thinking, what she was ashamed of, or what she was hoping for. Only these indescribable emotions are the abode of love. Love is the gradual union of these conscious sweetness with those of the opposite sex. And then happily. In this situation, he is like a blind poet, sitting among the flowers at night, enjoying the indescribable sweetness. Only a drop of dew wets his sleeves, like the tears of lovers. Aunt Xiao came back within less than 10 minutes. From outside the door, he shouted, half crying, half laughing. Jinger! Jinger! My aunt is very old. Li Jing sat up and looked out through the glass, and saw her aunt holding 2 chickens in her left hand. Use your right hand to rub the bright yellow egg juice down from the hem of your clothes. It's terrible, I'm such a useless old thing. I broke half of the 4 chickens. I just walked fast and didn't look at the telephone poles, look. Aunt Xiao said, wiping, crying, laughing, and lifting them at the same time busy. Aunt Xiao put the chicken in a small iron pot and boiled it. She wiped her tears with her hands and blew the hot air from the pot with her mouth to watch how many times the chicken rolled in the pot. He kept saying, girls love to eat tender food, love to eat tender food. She just kept talking and didn't remember the time in her heart. When I took out the chicken, I saw that it had been boiled to pieces. The most intense Chinese family revolution is when children refuse food provided by their elders. Eat 9.5. If your elders give you 10, at least you will be reincarnated as a foreigner. Li Jing didn't want to make her aunt lose her temper, so she slowly ate the chicken. Then he cheered up and wanted to help his aunt, but her aunt stopped her and didn't scream. Aunt, I'm so fine. Li Jing said. Isn't it? It's good to eat chicken. When I was young, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were alive. Chicken? Not a single chicken feather to eat. My stomach is always mostly empty, just waiting for your uncle to take me back to my parents' house to stay for a few days and have something to eat. Just eat it and it's good. It's not that my parents-in-law didn't treat me well, they had to set rules for their daughter-in-law. Fortunately, you have your uncle. If it weren't for him, I would have been starved to death. Speaking of your uncle, if he is suffering from this, God, if he wears glasses, he will never be able to see good and bad people. Jinger. When your uncle comes back, ask him for $1. Buy some things for your uncle and give them to him. That brother of mine treated me so well, I will never forget him. The aunt and niece talked nonsense for a while, and the aunt repeated what she had said 125 times, and then repeated it 126 times. Li Jing didn't need to listen. You can always give a good answer. After lunch, Aunt Zhao went to Dongqing to visit relatives. Wang De did not go far, but only walked back and forth around the temple of the protector of the nation. Sometimes I go into the temple. From the dilapidated door of the palace, I stared blankly at the bodhisattva who had lost his fortune and lacked robes and hats. He felt that Aunt Zhao had already gone out and hurried back. He gently opened the street door and walked into his house first, just in case his aunt didn't go out before going out. When I got to my room, I imitated the detective in the novel and leaned my ear against the wall to listen for any movement in my aunt's room. After listening for a long time, there was no sound and no barking. Then he slowly opened the door and called out, Sister Jing, in a low voice. Come in, Wang De. Li Jing was sitting on a small chair. Wang De didn't say anything, but walked up to her and kissed her. Except for savages who can kiss in broad daylight, civilized people don't kiss. Even if they do, it's in the shadows. Now these two barbaric men and women. It's actually like this, you said. I didn't say it. How dare they take risks, how dare they act randomly, they kissed again, you said. Go ahead, Wang De, I understand your heart. 19th. Lao Zhang was about to knock on Nagarjuna's door when the door suddenly opened. Lao Zhang stepped aside. A young man walked out, glanced at Lao Zhang, and walked forward. Li Ying. What are you doing here? Lao Zhang took a few steps forward. You have nothing to do with it. Li Ying stopped. You are young, there is no need to hold grudges. Tell me, what are you doing here? Meet Officer Long. Ah, meet the old dragon. Why do you want to see him? Something's wrong. Okay, no need to tell me, I can find out. Li Ying walked away angrily. Lao Zhang looked at his back and chuckled. Lao Zhang turned around. There was a dragon and phoenix standing in front of the door. She also looked at Li Ying. Lao Zhang felt itchy in his heart. He said in his heart, it's a pity that we don't have much money, so we pushed a flower on Sun Ba. It's helpless. Then, he changed his smile and walked forward, Miss Feng. Is your father at home? I'll let you know. Long Feng gently lifted up her black sarong and ran in. Like a small black butterfly. Lao Zhang lowered his head and glanced at her legs and wrists. What a thin and soft legs and wrists. She ran out again and said, please come in. When Lao Zhang went in, Long Feng opened the door. When Lao Zhang looked inside, he took a deep breath. There is a long table in the middle of the hall, covered with a snow-white tablecloth. There was a vase of flowers in the middle, and some snacks and tea sets were placed around it. Officer Long sat at one end of the table, and on the left sat 3 foreigners with yellow hair, green eyes, pointed noses, and high foreheads. 2 Chinese people sat on the right, speaking in foreign languages. Except for doing business in Japan when the Gingxi Allied forces entered Beijing, Lao Zhang always stood 10 feet away when he saw foreigners. Now they are only 5 feet apart, so his legs and feet feel a little weak. Please come in. Officer Long didn't look at Lao Zhang. Lao Zhang plucked up the courage to lift his legs and move them in. Long Shugu pointed to an empty chair on the right. Lao Zhang swallowed his saliva and sat down, sitting only 2 feet away from the foreigner, Mr. Zhang. Please come in. Officer Long didn't look at Lao Zhang. Lao Zhang plucked up the courage to lift his legs and move them in. Long Shugu pointed to an empty chair on the right. Lao Zhang swallowed his saliva and sat down, sitting only 2 feet away from the foreigner, Mr. Zhang. A gentleman from the North City and an educator. Officer Long introduced to the public, and Lao Zhang couldn't help but nod. Miss Feng, sit down too. Long Feng sat opposite her father. After the father and daughter poured the tea, Officer Long said to the old foreigner sitting in the middle on the left. Please ask Officer Go to pray and thank you for the tea. The officer slowly began to pray in Chinese, and the others all lowered their heads and closed their eyes and held their breath. Lao Zhang took the opportunity to see what the foreigners looked like with their eyes closed, because it was not easy to see foreigners sleeping. Just listen. Amen. Everyone raised their heads and opened their eyes, and Lao Zhang began to close his eyes. Officer Long handed the tea to everyone and asked one by one, do you want sugar and milk? When asked about Lao Zhang, he said one word, yes. He thought to himself, anyway, I won't suffer any loss if I want 2 more pieces of candy. Long Feng handed the snacks to everyone. When Lao Zhang saw the foreigners putting the snacks in their mouths, he boldly took a piece. Nagarjuna was talking and laughing. If the foreigners couldn't understand, the 2 people sitting on the right would translate it, so the foreigners also laughed. Long Feng and foreigners were talking about a mixture of Chinese and Western. Lao Zhang didn't understand at all. He just took advantage of everyone's inattention and took another snack and drank the milk tea in one gulp without holding his breath. Is Zhao Si okay? The old foreigner asked. Good morning. Now I pray morning and night and I am making great progress. Nagarjuna replied. How about donating money to the porridge factory? A young foreigner asked that. 375 yuan and 2 cents have been donated. The person sitting next to Lao Zhang said that, this Mr. Zhang is a philanthropist and donates money every year. Nagarjuna smiled and said to the foreigner. The old foreigner smiled at Lao Zhang and asked in Chinese, how are you? Okay. Lao Zhang said in a foreign accent. Are you donating money or not? Now. The foreigner asked again. Lao Zhang looked at Nagarjuna, and Nagarjuna answered for Lao Zhang. He donated. Donate every year. Officer Long followed up and said to a Chinese, take out the donation book and ask Mr. Zhang to pledge. I didn't bring any money. Lao Zhang said hurriedly. It doesn't matter. The person holding the donation book said, after writing the amount, we will send someone to pick it up. I have long admired the great philanthropist. Long-time admiration. When Lao Long asked a foreigner to recite a mantra, the foreigner immediately lowered his head and recited, "We can't mess with him now." Lao Zhang thought while accepting the donation book. He read it from beginning to end. Zhang, Wang, Li, and Zhao all had either 5 yuan or 3 yuan, and there was no half a copper or a dime. After reading it again, I found someone who donated 50 cents. So Lao Zhang gritted his teeth and wrote a donation of 5 cents and a small ocean. After everyone chatted for a long time, Nagarjuna discussed with the old foreigner and went to see Li Dashan to persuade him to donate. So everyone stood up and prepared to go out. Lao Zhang glanced at Officer Long. The officer pretended not to notice and said to Long Feng, "Pack your things. You don't have to wait for me for dinner. I won't be back early." Then Officer Long turned back to Lao Zhang and said, "Thank you for helping us. How about going out together?" Lao Zhang followed everyone out of the street. Nagarjuna said to Lao Zhang, "Goodbye," following the foreigners and walking away. Lao Zhang squatted under the wall in a daze. He thought blankly for a long time, then stood up and knocked on the door again. Dash. "Mr. Zhang hasn't left yet?" Long Feng opened the door and said, "I can't leave, I haven't finished speaking to your father yet. Father will come back soon, so you might as well wait." After Long Feng finished speaking, he closed the door with a bang. The debt has not been paid, and the marriage has not been settled. Asking a foreigner to swindle 50 cents out of him, Lao Zhang has suffered like this in his life. With nothing to come up with, he took out his small account book and wrote, "November 9th is Lao Zhang's anniversary of national humiliation. 20. The rain is like an ink cartridge, the wind is like an incense burner." It is a concise and succinct way for foreigners to describe Beijing. After listening to these 2 sentences, the Chinese could only praise the wonderful description, but did not feel that it was inappropriate for a capital city to resemble an ink box and an incense burner. Originally, why the capital must not be like an incense burner and an ink box? Why doesn't the world? Li Jing asked her uncle for $1, bought some snacks and the like, and went out of the city to see her uncle. After leaving her aunt's door, the north wind that comes every day in winter has begun to blow from thin to thick. First there were bursts of whistles in the air, like thousands of arrows shot from the sky. The yellow sand blown from the wild and the black soil on the road rolled into a grey tide, blowing through the hall from everything with holes. The heel of the beast is the heel of the beast that carries the man who walks with the wind. Pressing on the feet that were moving against the wind, the former was driven into involuntary rapid progress, and the latter was pressed into stone piles nailed to the ground. A gust of wind passed by, and the sky outside was covered with a circle of sand and mist. The sun shined through, as if a layer of yellow snow was floating. As the sound continued from far to near, the tall trees in the distance nodded gently at first, and all the movable things nearby gradually swayed. Then came the overwhelming wave of anger from behind. Things far and near, up and down, were roaring together into an unanalyzable wave and agitation. This goes on for a while, and after a while, the branches break, the thin earth walls fall down, and the dirt on the road is blown away, until the red sun sets in the west. Just a moment of rest in the desolate cold, waiting to attack everything on the earth again at night. Li Jing held her woolen scarf, half-closed her eyes, and ran forward after taking 3 steps, stopping for 2 steps. It took a long time to walk before we arrived at Dishengmen. The wind in the city gate is even more different. It was like thousands of bison, burning with rage, vying to squeeze out of the city cave. Their sharp horns pierced people's faces, which was a little more cool than a blade, and it was not only painful. That city gate hole was filled with an invisible and sound waterfall that kept rising every second. The people hit by the wild waves turned around again and again, like small fish swimming against the waves. Li Jing backed up and leaned against the city wall, using all her strength. It took her 5 minutes to squeeze out. The wind became even wilder outside the city gate. But the yellow sand blown in is much cleaner than the fishy black soil in the city. She struggled and finally reached home, but the sand in the hollow of her nose had accumulated more than half an inch thick. The fence creaked and creaked in the wind, and the broken millstone appeared in her eyes. The ones that fall together seemed to be blown away by the wind. Apart from these noises, there was not even a cough in the room. She seemed to have arrived in a cold and silent cave. "Uncle. I'm back." "Ah. Jinger. Come in quickly." Her uncle gathered around a small stove, reading a book. When he met Li Jing, he felt like a bee blown by the wind into a greenhouse filled with flowers. But his voice was still very low, and when the wind roared, no one could hear what he said clearly. "Uncle. It's me. Come sit down and warm up your hands. I'm going to wash my face first." She touched her face with her cold red fingers. "No need. Sit down first and let me take a look at you. Uncle, I bought you some snacks. She showed her uncle the snack package. The paper package was covered with sand. Did you ask your uncle for money again? Don't ask him for anything in the future, his money doesn't come easily. Yes. Uncle, how are you doing lately? Business as usual. Okay, you go wash your face. You have gained some weight again, I am relieved. She washed her face and took out $2 from her bag. Uncle. This is what Li Ying gave you. Good. Just put it on the table. Uncle, what do you eat? I'll make one for you. Li Jing saw a piece of frozen tofu and some green onions and garlic on the table. Okay. Give it to me. I'm tired of doing it myself. Not eating seems like something is missing, eating is really troublesome. While Li Jing was packing up everything, she was talking to her uncle about Li Ying and Wang De. His uncle nodded more than he spoke. The meal was prepared and the uncle and nephew ate it happily. How old are you, Jinger? Her uncle asked in a low voice. Uncle. You have also forgotten my age, 22 by the end of the year. Li Jing half smiled, feeling really sad that her uncle had lost his memory. Uncle is old. He put his hand on his forehead and remained silent for a long time, then asked again, so you are 22. How about your own affairs? What is my own business, uncle? Women do not have their own affairs, and women are not allowed to have their own affairs, but I allow you to assert your own affairs. You want me to find something to do in the city? Then I have something for you. I mean your own marriage. Jinger, you should treat your uncle the same as you treat your mother. Whatever you want to say it. This matter. Jinger. Let me say it first. Now someone wants to buy you as a concubine, if you have someone in mind. Decide quickly. You have a place to live, and I am willing to die no matter what. Li Jing understood who her uncle was referring to because Wang De had given her some hints. Uncle. Is there any other way besides death? She knitted those two beautiful eyebrows together. No. Come closer to me and I will tell you in detail. Li Jing moved the small stool closer to him. Her uncle's voice was like a half-withered yellow leaf, making a sad sound in the quiet cold wind. I'll tell you clearly, Lao Zhang wants to buy you. I planned to rescue Mrs. Zhang when he proposed marriage, but now it is considered a failure, no need to elaborate. If the first step fails, the second step cannot be delayed any longer. If you find the right person, I will make a marriage contract with you immediately. As for me, I'm sorry for Lao Zhang, I have no choice but to die. Uncle, do you think that if Li Ying and I were intentional, we could kill you? Li Jing's voice trembled. Jinger. Stay calm. How can I think that being alive is better than being dead? When such a waste dies, it will have no impact other than you and Li Ying crying for me. I would rather die than see Lao Zhang. The last time he came, he brought 2 soldiers wearing earth-colored military uniforms. He said, if you don't pay back the money and give your niece away, if you don't do either of those things, I'll send you to jail. Those 2 gray things stood outside the window and shouted, tie him away. No need to waste words. Jinger. Death is better than this. I can't watch you die, and neither can Li Ying. Cannot. Her face turned gray. Listen. Children should enjoy their lives, not live for the elderly. If you don't understand my heart. And falling into the hands of Lao Zhang, do you think, just living is not worse than death? It's cheap to kill a half-dead old man and a young man. Why not find a cheaper way to deal with it? All I have to do is listen to your business and tell me. My aunt is very strict. I can't see anyone except Wang De. Wang De is a good boy. We are still young. Love is what young people talk about. Good. Jinger. I'll go discuss it with your Uncle Wang. But I can't listen to you seeking death, Uncle. Jinger. The wind has calmed down a bit, let's go into the city. I understand you, you don't understand me. Girl, go back and say hello to your uncle and aunt. The old man stood up, put his trembling hands on her shoulders and looked at her carefully. She couldn't help crying. Jinger, let's go. Well. 21. Li Jing entered Dishengmen in a daze. The wind had subsided, but there were more tears blown out by the wind than when she came here. After crossing Disheng Bridge, people on the street pointed forward and said, look. Dong Shanren. An old woman said eagerly to a little girl begging for food, go quickly, Dong Shanren is there, go. Li Jing also stopped and looked. An old gentleman wore a blue cotton robe covering his feet, a monk's hat on his head, and a string of beads in his hand. Round face. He has a silver gray beard and a kind-hearted look. The beggars surrounded him, and he slowly took out a roll of money tickets from his hat and gave one to each of the beggars. Then he laughed wildly for a while and recited Ba loudly. Li Jing's heart moved. But he didn't dare to step forward and slowly followed the old gentleman southward. After passing the entrance of Jiangyang village, the gentleman suddenly laughed wildly again, turned around and walked back, entering the alley leading to Yinding Bridge. Li Jing watched him enter the alley. Just started walking to my aunt's house. She walked with her head down and arrived at the east entrance of Huguosi Street. Sister Jing. You're back. Wang De stood outside a shop, his face flushed from the cold. Sister Jing. My business was successful. He was as affectionate as a child seeing his own sister. Yeah? She said. Yes. Proofreading manuscripts for Daqiang Daily and conducting news interviews. 2 years later, with my talent, I became the main writer. Elder sister. You know the main writers are all literary giants. Wang De. Exist. Is Aunt at home? The upper bunk boy and my uncle went to ask for money. Let's go quickly. I'll tell you something important when I get home. Got the order. Wang De followed Uncle Zhao to listen to a play involving civil and military leaders at the Tianxiao Theater. He quite felt that the literature of drama had the advantage of being short and clear, and he used it unconsciously whenever he was happy. When the two people arrived at home, Li Jing said to Wang De eagerly, Wang De, can you go and do something for me? Okay. But wait until I finish talking about my business. Wang De. Li Jing was so anxious that she was about to cry. I beg you to do something for me immediately. No. If I don't tell you my story first, I feel like there is a big python hidden in my heart, crawling out section by section. That's one thing. Today, Wang De. You are so selfish. You don't love me? I don't love you, I'm a little ox without horns. So why don't you pay attention when I ask you to do something? Explain. Girl. I listen. After talking about yours, talk about mine. Do you know there is a Dong Shan in Beijing? Go and find out his address for me. What are you asking him to do? If you love me, please don't ask in detail. There's something mysterious about today. Don't ask, don't tell. Good. If you don't ask, Wang De will go. Wang De pulled his legs and ran out. He opened the street door with a bang and said, ouch. Li Jing ran out after him and saw Wang De covering his head with one hand. Lift the door latch with one hand. Wang De. Are you still alive? No. Except for adding a goose peak on the head. Wang De said and ran away again. In less than 10 minutes, Wang De ran back. Wang De, does your head hurt? She touched his head and it was still hot. It doesn't hurt. Sister Jing. I ran to the street and came up with a plan. Instead of going to Beijing to inquire, I might as well ask the patrol police. Sure enough, the patrol officer told me that the good man's address was at number 98, Yindingqiao. Your matter is over, is it my turn? Say it. Elder sister. What's on your mind? The word say it doesn't sound like your usual tone. Nothing to worry about. How are you doing? As an interviewer, I will be the main writer in the future. This is no mediocre career. You see, isn't it the best thing to enlighten people's wisdom? You have to compose an article and write a manuscript. It would be weird if the newspaper accepted your manuscript. Sister Jing, why are you making fun of me? Wang De is really unhappy. If you don't believe me, wait until uncle comes back and ask him and listen to what he says. Must. If you ask your uncle, he can probably prove that what you said is wrong. Wang De pouted. I thought to myself, how to write an article, how to publish it in the newspaper, how to secretly put the newspaper with my article in her room, let her read it, and how she would be admired. Li Jing thinks about her own things, and he thinks about his own things. No one felt lonely, they looked at each other without speaking. Li Ying is back. Li Ying. I haven't seen him in years. Wang De finally found someone who liked to listen to his story, because Li Jing didn't want to hear it. Wang De, why do you always talk nonsense? I saw you again this morning. How come it's only been a few years? Li Ying said to his sister again, what did uncle say? Yes, siblings. There is no place for me to talk today. Wang De. Don't make any noise. Li Ying still asked her, how is uncle? Uncle is in good health as usual. I just ask you to do your best. Li Jing covered up everything else. Wang De, what's your matter? Li Ying asked quickly, fearing that Wang De was unwilling. You ask me? Is this what you want to hear? Okay. Listen. Wang Di got a chance. I went out of town today and met a relative. He introduced me to the Daqiang newspaper office, where I worked half as an interviewer and half as a proofreader. Proofreading is done every day, and the monthly salary is 10 yuan. Interviewing for manuscripts is variable, and there is a remuneration for accepting manuscripts. I'll go to work tomorrow to try my hand at work. Li Ying learned proofreading and editing. Even if I understand a large part of a newspaper office, I might open a newspaper office myself in 3 or 2 years. I am not doing it to make money, but to enlighten people's wisdom. This is a genuine good thing. After Wang De finished speaking, he was waiting for Li Ying's praise. Wrong is good. Li Ying said slowly. It's just that there is no need to say whether things are good or bad until you have personally experienced them. Good. Another thunder. When I was in school, I said you looked like an 80-year-old man. You really sound like my ancestor. Wang De did not miss his smile. That's true. It's not that I have experience and you don't. I don't believe it after all. Are things in the world really unpredictable, good or bad? You don't understand what I mean, Wang De. We'll talk about it in detail when we have time. Now I want to think about my own affairs. After Li Ying finished speaking, he walked to his room, and Li Jing went to the kitchen to make dinner. Only Wang De was left talking to himself. Yes. We also think about our own things. 22. Lao Zhang wrote a Maidun Book of Sorrow to Nagarjuna. Old Long. You owe us money. If it's not delivered tomorrow, I'll see you in the trial hall. If you have a request and the money doesn't arrive, I'll let you know. Zhang Yin. Nagashugu panicked and immediately handed over a letter of surrender and asked Lao Zhang to meet at Taifengju in Xinjiku to discuss all conditions. All the expenses such as food and tea would be paid by the weak country. The tactics of both sides were not weak, but according to historians, Lao Zhang's military strength was stronger than that of Lao Long, even though he was an officer of the Salvation Army. Representatives from both sides attended on time, and the meeting at Taifengju began. Old Long. Just say it. You spent a lot of foreign money, and now you are pretending to be a fool. It's not okay. There is no part of Lao Zhang's body that is obviously superior to Nagarjuna. He raised his head, half-closed his eyes, and pointed at Lao Long. Discuss slowly, don't be in a hurry. Officer Long is still very calm. Don't worry, it's my son. The crystal-clear Yuan Shirkai's head will never look back. Don't worry, me? No way, see you in the trial hall. Lao Zhang turned his head away from Lao Long, and looked at the other tea guests eating. Litigation, Lao Zhang, you don't understand the law. How? You see, when litigating a lawsuit nowadays, it is important to hire a lawyer. If you are fighting for a property worth $1,000, the lawyer's fees may be $500 or $600. If you get involved in a lawsuit, it may take 3 to 5 years to complete, and you won't be able to afford the car payment. Even if the case is won, execution is still far away. However, the transportation, meal and lawyer's fees are in cash and not on credit. If you want to save money and don't hire a lawyer, let me hire one. Lawyers have the ability to make sense out of nothing. I have many friends in the legal world, Officer Long continued without being humble or condescending. They all said in unison that they would rather be wronged than litigate, and they did not care about the loss of money except for those who wanted to achieve success. Lao Zhang, think about it calmly. It would be best for us to deal with it peacefully. Don't you believe it? We have to go to court. I, Lao Long, can only accompany you. Lao Zhang rolled his eyes and looked through all the ledgers and histories in his mind. Then say, it's my freedom whether to file a lawsuit or not. You can't be the plaintiff anyway. Whether your words are true or false, I don't have time to think about it. But our friendship is important, Lao Long. It seems that there is no need to scratch your face and make others laugh. What on earth do you do? Pay back the money slowly. Don't try to trick people, old dragon. I have heard this sentence more than 500 times. Is there anything you can do? Have. I'm afraid you won't do it. Let's listen. It's the same sentence. You have such a good girl, why can't you get some bride price and clear your debts? If I don't have a reliable person to do it for me, the bride price won't fly down from the sky, right? Look here. Lao Zhang pointed to the bridge of his nose and said, your daughter is just like mine. As long as you are willing to do it, Lao Zhang dares to say, do things worthy of your friends. Where is your plan? Listen, have you seen Mr. Sun Ba? Isn't he that stupid country gentleman? Old Long, don't underestimate people. Drink. A local gentleman? Good humanity and good knowledge. And he is a born rich man. He has money that is his. Maybe it's ours. Sun Bei is not very old, he is only around 30 now. In the former case, he told me that he wanted to marry a female student. I heard it and put it in the back of my mind. Later, when I saw Miss Fong, I remembered this incident. Based on the girl's intellectual appearance and Sun Bai's character and status, the more I look at them, the more they look like a beautiful couple made for each other. But I never told you. You didn't say it clearly, did you express your intention? Old friend. Don't say a word. Lao Zhang deliberately used a flaw to show weakness to Lao Long, because people can win a word but lose their heads. Sure enough, if you are willing to do it, I can go and tell Sun Ba. The thing is done, the girl has someone to rely on, and you have cleared your debt. Does it kill two birds with one stone? Now it's up to you, tell me the amount. 300,000 yuan. Old Long. Lao Zhang laughed. Don't ask for less. The president can't afford to pay 300,000 yuan to buy a girl. If you want to sell it, it's worth it. It's 5 coppers each. I'll buy a few more. This is not a sale, this is a matchmaking ceremony, with red flowers and red sedans being carried out. Betrothal gift is not worth. Then, no written evidence? This is writing, and there are so many ways to write it. Old Zhang. Let's open our noses and tell the truth, it is absolutely necessary to write and sell coupons. If we don't write, there will be discussions in the early 1000s. Fortunately, the money is in your hands and you charge my debt. Even if there is only 1 copper left in addition to your debt, if we buy a bag of fragrant tea and drink it, it is also considered as selling our daughter. Isn't this pleasant? You are a friend, take it. Lao Zhang stretched out his hand and shook Officer Long's hand warmly. Selling coupons does not mean writing, a marriage letter is indispensable. It's up to you. If it's done properly, your money will be fine. Otherwise, if the money flies away again, we, surnamed Long, will not bear the responsibility of delaying the debt. I have my daughter, I have Sun Bas money, and I have you, so let's do this. I look forward to good news. Good friend. Come. Let's have a cup of wedding wine today. The weak country is responsible for food and tea. Seeing that the letter of surrender has been included, Officer Long has no choice but to ask for some food and wine to feed Lao Zhang. The Taifengja meeting ended, and the strong wind outside roared again. Lao Zhang bravely and happily walked toward his home against the north wind, as if the darkness of the world was his ideal realm. 23. Wang De pouted and walked towards Aunt Zhao's house against the sharp and murderous north wind, his lips turning red from the cold. It was already 1 o'clock in the night, and the electric lights on the street were blown on and off by the wind, like will-o'-the-wisps, flickering on the cold hedgehog-like patrolman standing in the middle of the street. All the shops on the roadside are closed, except for a few copper and iron shops that work at night. Still tinkling the nocturne of late winter. Motorcycles carrying wealthy people flew by faster than the wind, shooting out white flames, temporarily breaking the silence of the street. This is Wang De's 7th night working in the newspaper office. The proofreading of the manuscript can't be completed until 11 o'clock, and the earliest I can get home is after 12 o'clock. Because of Uncle Zhao's charity, Wang De was still allowed to live there. He could come back late at night and get up later during the day. This was what Uncle Zhao taught Wang De. There was a burst of hot sweat on my body and a cool breeze outside. As a result, my whole body was covered with a layer of sticky and cool paint. Those who left wanted to die rather than leave again, so they arrived at Uncle Zhao's house. He opened the door gently and locked it gently. Then he walked quietly and breathlessly towards his room. He stood and listened to the long and thin voice in the north room for a while, and said in his heart, "Sister Jing. I'm back." Wang De went into his room and lit the candle. Li Ying's eyes were opened by the candlelight, and then he put his head under the quilt. Li Ying. Wang De shouted in a low voice. Li Ying snorted and hid his head deeply in the quilt again. Wang De was embarrassed to wake Li Ying up. He took a candle and shined it into the house. When he took the light, he saw a pair of new shoes under Li Ying's bed. Then he put out the candle and went to bed. Wang De didn't wake up until 9 o'clock the next day. Li Ying had already gone out. Wang De. It's time to get up. Li Jing said outside the window. Just get up. When did you come back yesterday? Needless to say, if I had no blood, would have died outside yesterday. Would you like to go out in the afternoon? Uncertain. My aunt is going out of town to see my uncle in the afternoon. Good. I'm not going out, but I have something to tell you. I also want to talk to you. Li Jing went to the kitchen to work, and Wang De got up slowly, still pouting. Aunt Zhao was preparing to go out, which was much more complicated than the soldiers going into battle. Everything was ready, and she came back twice. Once she forgot to bring a small handkerchief. One time I came back and covered the piece of frozen tofu in the kitchen with a plate. After Aunt Zhao really left, Wang De and Li Jing sat together and talked calmly.